Good evening, everybody. This is Seth Engelborg, Chair of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. Today is the November 21st meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. We are meeting in a hybrid fashion via Zoom and in person at the Nantucket Public Safety Facility. The first thing we're going to be doing is establishing the roll call of members. So members, when you hear your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mike Mizzarelli.
Here.
RJ Turcott.
Here.
Joe Plandowski.
Here.
Tim Brain.
Here.
John Schaefer.
Here.
And Seth Engelborg is here. We also need a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. We can do this by voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. Well, before we move to the first item in our agenda, we'll go through the continuances today. And there is just one. Under notices of intent, we have the Summer House of Nantucket Realty Trust at 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, SC 48 3824, continued until January 9th of 2025. That being said, we'll open our meeting tonight under public meeting, public comment. This is for items not being heard on the agenda. If anybody physically present in the room has a comment that they wish to speak, please do so now. If anyone on Zoom has a public comment that they wish to do, please do so now. Seeing none, we're going to move on in our agenda to public hearing. And we'll be starting the public hearing with Sconset Beach Preservation Fund at 41 through 119 Baxter Road, SC 48 37 36. Jeff, do you want to make any update on anything that's transpired?
Sure. So, again, I apologize for some lateness in materials today. Hopefully everyone got a chance to read. We did distribute today. We received our memo from our legal counsel, Beveridge and Diamond. Attorney Sanders, Dylan Sanders, is on Zoom today too, if people have questions about that or would like a little bit of a recap. He's here to answer those questions. We do have a couple other issues from the order after that discussion that we can run through. We've been doing some research for the past few weeks on a couple of these items to some mixed results, and we can get to those when we get to those. But I wanted to make sure we had time with Mr. Sanders here to talk to him and get some legal advice.
Okay, so we'll start there. Good evening, Mr. Sanders. Dylan Sanders is our attorney from Beveridge and Diamond, and a letter was provided to us that is currently not public information. It's attorney-client privileged, but you're welcome to say what you wish to say, and if we choose to release that information in that letter, we will do so at that time. So Dylan, good evening.
Good evening. Nice to meet you all. And let me just say, this is, there's no suggestion that this is your only opportunity to consult with me. So I will make myself available at future meetings as well to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do you wish to say anything about the letter or the remaining questions that were not contained within that letter?
I don't have anything to add to the memo or the letter, as you say. But I'm happy to expound upon it or to answer any specific questions that were not addressed in the memo.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay. Yeah, John, you're not sitting on this one anyway, and RJ is not either, so.
Seth.
Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't get a chance to see the letter until about 4:30 today, so I only got to skim through it. So that's just where I'm at with it. And I noticed Chip's got his hand up too.
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that, and if we have questions, we'll direct them to you appropriately. So I'll now recognize Chip Nyland. But before I do that, I want to say that we did receive the submission that you sent in. It was sent in timely and received on the 15th. Unfortunately, it was not forwarded to the commissioners until today at 2 o'clock. That is not your,
That's on.
that's
our
on
end.
the staff. That's not
Apologize.
your problem or responsibility, but it was sent in timely, so thank you for doing that. With that being said, please introduce yourself for the record and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chip Nyland, representing SBPF with respect to the notice of intent. Mine's a procedural question. I came in just at the end of the roll call. I wanted to make sure that all of the members are here that are eligible to vote. I wanted to make sure that that we don't have somebody that may miss a second meeting. And so I just didn't hear that everyone was there, so that it's a procedural question.
We do not have all commissioners here. We have sitting on this application, myself, Mike Mizzarelli, Joe Plandowski, and Tim Brain. Those are the 4 commissioners sitting on this application.
Okay.
Also, we have Commissioners Turcott and Schaefer who are not eligible to sit on this application. Commissioner Williams is not in attendance.
So we do not want to go forward and have any deliberation on this matter if Commissioner Williams is not here.
Would you like to request a continuance in that case?
Well, do we know whether or not she will be attending later or if she's going to miss the entire meeting?
I do not know. Would you like to request that we hold this off until the end of notices of intent?
Yeah, I think that would probably be the best thing to do.
Staff and our counsel who is here, is that amenable to you?
Linda she messaged me right before the meeting that she was leaving the Board of Health meeting and that she was on her way. So, where is she? Yeah, so she should be here. I would say if you want, you could certainly maybe take the next one and
Okay,
come back to this.
how about this? How about we'll move on to the other Sconset Beach Preservation Fund application at 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SC 483759, and then we'll come back to this one after. Is that amenable to you?
That would be fine. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let's open that application under SC 483759. This is represented by Dr. Dunk. Dr. Dunk, good evening.
Yes, good evening. And actually, I am going to request a continuance of this public meeting as this is somewhat tied with the larger project. I was waiting to see how the hearing for the larger project proceeded tonight. So with that being on hold, I'd like to request a continuance for this one.
That is fine. We need to continue to a date certain. Would you like to continue to 12/5? That's our next meeting, or would you like to continue to farther in the future than that?
12/5 is fine with us.
Okay, this will continue until December 5th. So moving on, we'll go to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 181, 181R, 171R, Hummock Pond Road. And RJ and John, you can re-enter the table. And this is represented by Liz Phelps. Is Liz here with us? She's in the attendees. We need to elevate her to a panelist. Liz, can you hear us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. Please introduce yourself for the record and then begin your application.
Oh, good evening. Thank you. Liz Phelps, representing Nantucket Islands Land Bank on our application for forest management at Gardner Farm on Hummock Pond Road. We actually presented this at the November 7th hearing, but had to continue it to wait for the 14-day notification period for the environmental monitor. So I believe we can close that today, but I'd be happy to go into a summary or answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Liz. Staff, do we have confirmation that that period has elapsed?
Indeed we do, Chair Engelborg.
Thank you. Does any commissioners have questions or comments on the nature of the application? Do members of the public have questions or comments related to the application? Seeing none, Liz, it sounds like you'd like to close, so is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Seeing none, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams has joined the meeting at 5:11. Please make that known for the record. So we will be heading back to Sconset Beach Preservation Fund at 41 through 119 Baxter Road, SC 48 37 36. Chip Nyland, was there anything that you would like to go over at this point?
No, I think that my understanding was we would proceed with continuing on the draft order of conditions language, and we're ready to participate.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So I think the most important thing to do at this hearing today is to begin to discuss some of the stipulations around the waiver, since it's a major factor that could cause this application to either be able to be permitted or not based on how we decide to apply that waiver. So as a matter of background, it is the commission's tentative finding. I say tentative because the only way we're going to make it a real finding is by issuing an order. But it is the commission's tentative finding that imminent danger is being defined as 40 feet from the bank, and that both the geotextile tubes and the coir terraces are considered coastal engineering structures under the Nantucket local regulations. Because of those determinations, there are a number of properties, there are a number of parcels that do not meet the performance standard and will need to be waivered if a coastal engineering structure is to go into place on those lots. So Jeff or Will, who is ever running this, could we put up that and start to discuss those specific lots?
Sure. Will's running the screen, because that way it can get, well, it's just a matter of that way it can be shared on the screen and through the Zoom.
While he's doing that, is what I said accurate? Is there anything else you want to expand upon on that?
On the waiver specifically?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And to be abundantly clear for the record, it's probably important to talk about which performance standards are not being met and the reasons why that waiver is being applied for. So if we go to Coastal Bank, let's find it here. And the performance standards number 1, it says no new bulkheads, coastal revetments, groins, or other coastal engineering structures shall be permitted to protect structures constructed or substantially improved after 878, except for public infrastructures. Bulkheads and groins may be rebuilt only if the commission determines there is no environmentally better way to control an erosion problem, including in appropriate cases, moving the threatened buildings and or public infrastructure. Other coastal engineering structures may be permitted only upon a clear showing that no alternative exists to protect a structure that has not been substantially improved or public infrastructure built prior to 978 from imminent danger. So other performance standards apply, but that's the main one that is triggering the request for the waiver. So commissioners, our job, once we get the order up with the lots, is to work through whether we think a few things have been met. So we've gone through to describe which lots are in imminent danger and which lots are not in imminent danger using the 40-foot setback. And now our job is, if we choose to apply a waiver to the lots that are not in imminent danger, we only can do so upon a clear showing that no alternative exists to protect a structure. So our job is to look through and to determine if the applicant has provided enough proof that no alternative exists or not. And yeah, that's what the discussion needs to be about. Commissioners, thoughts, questions, comments? Linda, go ahead.
I think it meets it, and I just as soon grant them the waivers, period.
Thank you. Do you want to expound upon why you think it meets it, or
No.
just thinking?
It just does.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yep, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're going to certainly have some discussion, but, one of the factors is it doesn't make, in some ways, it doesn't make sense to proceed with certain phases of the project in, a broken up fashion. But let's look at the, whatever we have to look at for the particular lots.
Thank you, Mike. Other commissioners? Tim?
Are we going to,
Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
are we
or
going
Joe.
to consider having these structures moved back so they're outside the 40-foot mark?
So we are required under the performance standard to look at all possible options. It specifically says moving a threatened building, that's something we must look at. I know the applicant has provided some context there on some of the lots about how the properties or the structures cannot be moved. But so it's our role to figure out if in any of the lots, the structure can be moved back, or if any of the lots, there's another alternative that could be done to remedy the problem that exists without running afoul of the performance standards. We are required by law to do it. It's not a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of whether we think there should be a continuous array there, whether we love coastal engineering structures, whether we hate them. It's not that at all. We are required by law to permit the project alternative that's going to cause the least impact to resource areas, even if it's not the alternative that we personally like. That is our regulatory responsibility. So when we say things like, we just think they should happen, I don't find that regulatory sufficient. There has to be a reason, a material reason, to show that the no alternatives exist. Yes, Linda, go ahead.
I agree with what Mike said. I'm still in the Board of Health mode here. I agree with what Mike said. It doesn't make any sense to have it and then not have it, and then have it and then not have it, and then have it and not have it. That's going to create problems. That's why I think it's continuous, and to grant the waivers to make it contiguous. Not have this on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. That's totally counter to what the practical thought should be.
Thank you. So what I am saying is whether it makes sense or not is not the question before us. Whether it's permissible is the question before us. If we can prove that having a non-contiguous array is going to cause significantly more impacts to the resource areas in some, not to one resource area, because we're dealing with multiple resource areas here, than not having a contiguous array, then that could be a justification for granting this waiver. But we can't just say it. We have to have material evidence that proves that or goes beyond our opinion. It has to be scientifically relevant evidence. Yes, Linda, go ahead.
Is this something that they can provide to us and provide the whole strip as to which ones do, which ones don't, and what the impact's going to be, so we can actually see it on here as to how big these gaps are and which properties are where the gaps would occur
Thank you.
for the next meeting?
They provided a letter that
I know the
explains
letter.
the justification. I think Mr. Nowen and Ms. Moldenhauer, I think what Commissioner Williams is asking for is a map of these areas, or updated map of the areas showing which properties
Lots.
which lots are being asked for under the waiver criteria versus which lots are meeting the performance standards. Is that something you'd be willing to provide? Mr. Nyland or Ms. Moldenhauer, feel free to go ahead.
Thank you. When the pilot project ended and it was revoked, there was a group that was put together to establish what the conditions, if any, would go forward for an extended protection along the entire beach. It was a long process. There was considerable review of alternatives, and those alternatives were put into literature and have been shared with this commission at least once and maybe even twice, and there have been discussions. Our view from the beginning has been, which has been shared by the town and is consistent with the obligations under the Wetlands Act for your actions as well as under the bylaw, is this is a comprehensive project running from north to south. When the commission established a new standard for imminent danger of 40 feet and then made findings with respect to other lots necessary, as we call them, gap lots, that left us with 16 lots that didn't fall within either of those categories. I have on 2 occasions, and most recently last week, sent you a request that the waivers be granted for all of those lots based upon the 2 categories that are established under your bylaw. There are 4 categories for waivers. And to summarize, one that you've cited, Mr. Chairman, is there's a finding that there's no adverse impact and that reasonable alternatives have been reviewed. And I will maintain that those reasonable alternatives have been reviewed, have been in front of the commission, and we meet that requirement. The second reason for a waiver is if there's a net benefit to the protection of the resource area, and that speaks for itself, because every activity that we are requesting has its sole intent of protecting the coastal bank. Now, there are ancillary obviously objectives, and it protects houses, but the purpose is to protect the erosion of the coastal bank, and that's what this does. So our view is that this does not have to be lot by lot, that the commission has the authority to make the finding that I requested in the letter that was somehow not published, and I understand that for some reason it wasn't placed. But our view is that all of those waivers can be granted for all of those lots without going one by one. If the commission makes the findings that I've requested in my letter, that it meets the 2 categories for a waiver under the bylaw. And you know, I agree with you in terms of where we are with those that have been identified as qualifying for imminent danger and those that are the gap lots. So we're asking for the 16 lots that I've identified to be waived for the performance standards for coastal bank. and to the extent under the bylaw for coastal beach.
Thank you, Mr. Nyland. To follow up on my original question, I have some comments related to what you said, but to follow up my original question, would the applicants be willing to provide to this commission a map that shows the lots broken down by which meet the performance standards and which meet, or which are being applied for under the waiver criteria?
Well, we have that plan we could put up right now that would show you what, which 16 lots that we're talking about, if that's what you're looking for.
That, I believe, is what Commissioner Williams is looking for.
But I would hope that we could get to the question as to addressing this on a universal basis rather than spending 5 weeks going lot by lot for each one of these.
Thank you. Yes, Linda, your question?
I'm looking at the list. I see the list. It's basically 41 to 81. My point is, another point, have you given the storms and stuff, have you reassessed some of these in 20 and 21 to see if now they actually do meet the criteria? So
yes.
I'm just asking to reassess some of these. It starts at 41 to 59, not eroding a bank, and then 61 to 81 on the fronting the coastal bank, but not imminent danger. Have you gone back to assess any of these lots to see if they actually move categories?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because there are a number of lots that fall into that 40 feet now that didn't a year or two ago, and there are those there's some that are in 41 or 39 feet that are close to being to qualifying. And that's the point that I've made here, is that when we looked at this as a comprehensive project, we recognize that some of those lots over time will fall into the imminent danger. But rather than wait for that to take place and doing this on a piecemeal basis, we've looked at it on a comprehensive entire beach basis. And that's why we've asked for waivers for those that by the time we end this project, the commissioner is right, they may not need a waiver because they may fall within the within the imminent danger or the gap lot based upon being adjacent to one that falls into the imminent danger category.
Thank you, Mr. Nyland. So 3 points, and then I see Meredith, and then Joe, I'll go to you. So just related to what you said last, I agree that there are likely lots that the distance to the bank has changed, but we can't just say they've changed. We need an updated plan that references that. The applicant at any time could resurvey the area and submit an updated plan. So if you wish to do that, you're welcome to. But in the absence of that, even if we go out on a beach and measure, we can't use that information. We have to use the plan of record. So it's up to you to either use the plan of record and look for the waiver for the lots that don't meet it in that plan, or provide an updated plan. The second thing,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, through you, we have provided, I've given you a list of all of the lots that we've asked the waivers for. I've done that formally through a writing, and you have the plans in front of you that identify exactly which lots those are.
Yes, but it's not updated for what you and Linda were talking about.
Well, absolutely, it's updated.
Well,
Well, I mean,
No,
because
it's not.
we-
It's not a engineered, or it's not a surveyed plan that is stamped and updated. I mean, we're still using the plans that were submitted in the notice of intent. So
Well, we're not going to have a stamped plan, if, as you recall, until after this hearing has been closed.
yes, I recall that. And then in that case, we are forced by our regulations to use the distances that existed at the time of the filing of that plan. So if the lots have changed and they're now closer than 40, it's irrelevant because we're using the distances in the plan. We have to use the distances in the plan. We don't have any choice on that. Jeff, go ahead.
So just want to bring up a point of clarity, and I appreciate that, and again, I apologize for having some information getting kind of caught on the laundry machine there, but the findings on the board there, right? 18, 19, 20, and 21. The information used to create those are from the notice of intent. We didn't go out and measure or do those things. Table 2 in the notice of intent, page 46, 47, there is a table that has criteria that say things like eroding coastal bank, yes or no. Distance to the house, and they provide the distance. Can the house be relocated, yes or no? So we went through that table that was provided by the applicant, and that's how we determined that from the criteria that was provided. I appreciate that letters have come in saying that other things qualify differently, but until that's either updated or changed, I mean, ready? I'll just say, I feel that, you know, I don't mean to be glib or off color here, but I think 109 doesn't qualify anymore. That doesn't mean anything, right? I can say everything I want, but the information provided is what's on the screen.
Yeah, and without going too deep into this, even if you went out with a measure, even if a surveyor went out with a real-time kinetic GPS and took a distance and sent us a picture of that distance, it still doesn't qualify. We go off the plan of record submitted in notice of intent or as amended by a new plan. That's what we're required to do under our regulations. So two more things related to the waiver criteria. So just generally, the long-term net benefit criteria has to take into account not just one resource area, the coastal bank, but all the resource areas. So we're dealing with coastal beach, coastal bank, land under the ocean, and the buffer zones to those. And we have to prove there can't be a net benefit for one area at the expense of a deficit for another area. In order for it to be a long-term net benefit, it has to provide benefit for all areas. And it's the same with the no adverse impacts, no reasonable alternatives. It's clear that in projects like this, there is going to be some adverse impacts to some resource area because that's just how coastal engineering works. But our job is to minimize them to the extent possible so that we use a technology that minimizes those adverse impacts as much as possible. And I would just repeat it myself, but if there's another technology that exists, we are required to permit that over one technology. So Ms. Moldenhauer, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just would maybe reiterate a little bit what our attorney Nyland summarized, and I would go through you, Chair, back to Ms. Williams. I think we have, over the multiple hearings and the substantial data that's in the record, proven that there are no reasonable alternatives, even to the degree that you, Chair, have just articulated. We have provided that evidence, and it is in the record. We've also provided in the record evidence that has been supported by expert testimony, including expert testimony prepared by the town's consultant, Arcadius, as well as SVPF's consultants, that there is a net benefit here. As we have asked for, I think that we have articulated the waiver that we are asking for, and we understand, to make it very clear, that there may be lots that currently do not need a waiver, but we think that they all meet the waiver requirement, and we would love the commission tonight to vote on this. We understand that there may be some lots that could be excluded, but we would obviously do that survey at the time that we start construction, so you can't consider that now. And so, through you, Chair, to Commissioner Williams, if this is sufficient and you believe that the evidence is there, we would obviously seek that the commission affirm that tonight, and then we can move on, because we know we have other issues that the commission wants to hear about. If you were asking for additional information, we'd obviously be happy to provide it. But if those individuals want to submit a request to support the waivers as proposed and as outlined in the record, we think that the evidence is there for you to make that finding. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Dunk?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of elements that I just wanted to talk about. One is that finding of fact number 22 that's in the draft identifies the number of lots for which a CES is allowed to maintain a contiguous, contiguous protection. And that limits the number of lots for which the waiver is requested. That is in the red line markup that Attorney Nyland sent over to the commission last Friday. I do have a crude markup just to show which lots are covered by 19 and 22 and which ones for which a waiver is requested. If that would help the commission understand which lots the waivers are requested for by SBPF and the town.
I'll grant you permission to share your screen if that's okay with our staff.
Right.
All right. Yep, you can do it.
Thank you. And I appreciate this is just a handwritten.
You understand that, although we do need it submitted to the NRD staff. If it's
Sure. This was so that we could properly identify the lots for which the waiver text was written in the red line markup. So starting from the north and working south, the blue checks show all the lots that are covered.
Yeah, we got to share your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did. I
No.
apologize for that. Thank you. Great. Now can you see it?
Hold on one second. Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, great. Sorry, as I said, it was crude and for our purposes of drafting the red line. So the blue checks are all the lots that are covered under finding of fact 19 or 22. So they're either the 40 feet or less within a road and coastal bank, or needed to provide a contiguous shoreline protection measure. So that brings it all the way down to 75. So everything from 117 down to 75. And then the request in the notice of intent was for the geotubes to extend to 71 down to 71. So that's in the first phase. So that includes two houses for which are right up against the road, for which no further movement is possible. And then for the rest of the houses, the lots from 69 down to 40, down to 45 is what the waiver is requested. We have not requested a waiver for 41 because our records have not shown that it meets the 20, the records show that it exceeds the 20% expansion of habitable space. And in the project, phase 1 is for 41 to 59 is monitoring. Phase 2 would be the sacrificial dune, which is not a CES. And then from 61 to 69 would be in phase 1 the Coyer terraces, for which these lots have had Coyer terraces for nearly 20 years, and then allowing it to transition to a geotube as identified in the notice of intent, the operation manual, et cetera, should certain criteria be met that would allow it to transition. So what we're getting at is those are the lots for which a waiver is needed. And so in terms of just looking at the findings of fact, I just wanted to bring into account that findings of fact 22, and that it limits the number of lots for which we requested the waiver. For the phase 1 waiver with the geotube, it's 2 lots. For 61 to 69, it's Coyer terraces in phase 1, which is continuing existing a long-term status quo, and then beyond that is this sacrificial dune.
So if you could just keep the
Just wanted to clarify that point because people are focusing on lot by lot, and I just wanted to let people know the
Yeah,
kind of the big picture of what those waiver requests were for.
Can you actually put the screen back up to page 4 again? Thank you. So we've been informally using the word gap lot, but if you look here, this is 7 lots in a row under phase 1, which are requiring a waiver. And then if you go to page 5, that's another 6 lots, or yeah, I think 6 or maybe 5 lots in a contiguous to those other 7 lots that are going to require a waiver under phase 2. I understand that in phase 1 is sacrificial sand, but then it would go to the Coar Terrace, which we're talking about as a coastal engineering structure. So that's 12 contiguous lots. So it seems to me that if you think about the linear distance of how long that is, that's not really gap lot. That's a huge amount of beach that we're talking about applying a waiver for. And it seems like we should be thinking about stepping back and saying, what if we just started with some of the lower alternatives in these areas? Like, what if in this dune area, we just started with the dune monitoring and sacrificial sand, and we just didn't do anything else, and then we monitored it, and then later in a different notice of intent, if needed, we would apply for Coar terraces or what have you. Or if you go back up to page 5, or page 4, sorry.
That is page 5, 4. Okay.
Page 4, my bad. You know, looking at where the geotube is starting at 71, bringing the Coar terraces, or 73, bringing the Coar terraces up to start at 73, having them continue through 61, and just having Coar terraces. And then later, if needed, because of storm conditions or what have you, applying for a different notice for that. The applicants say that there's no reasonable alternatives to the technologies they've presented. But in this own commission's packet, we have an application for 59 through 83 Baxter Road for Coar terraces. And I know it's been the opinion of the applicants in the past that they don't provide the same amount of bank protection. But it seems crazy to me that you would apply for something and then say it's not an alternative in this project. I just don't understand that from a logistical perspective. If the Coar terraces can be used, they need to be used. That's the regulatory standard. So thank you. Linda, go ahead.
Haven't we had testimony that that particular type of installation is not a permanent, strong installation, and they keep getting ripped to shreds? Some of these storms we've had, the 4-day storm in particular, and that it would be basically a stopgap or put on lots that are not as in imminent danger, to sort of just be a stopgap for that point. But down the road, more than likely, they'll need another installation. I think that was the point, is that this isn't meant to be the end-all of end-alls on these lots, because over time, they'll probably have to end up with a geotube running where these are now. So I think they're looking at the geotube as more of a permanent stopgap, as opposed to the Coar terrace that gets ripped to shreds half the time. So that was my understanding. I mean, that may be wrong.
So our job, to use your word, a stopgap, our job as a commission is not to protect resource areas or is not to provide protection for houses in perpetuity. Our job, if you read the performance standard that I already read, I'm not going to read it again, the waiver that's being applied for, our job is to approve an alternative that will protect the structure from imminent danger. If the Coar terrace can protect from imminent danger, not some 100-year storm, not 50 years down the line, imminent danger, then it must be used. We cannot accept a different alternative. We must use that alternative. Does commissioners understand that?
I have a question about that.
Yes, go ahead.
If the quad terraces and the geotubes are both now considered coastal structures, why differentiate between them? Why not put a geotube there? From a regulatory point of view.
Thank you, Commissioner Brain. So we would have to go through the justification to show how core terraces have less adverse impacts to the other resource areas than a geotube. If we cannot provide that justification, then we would proceed with geotube. But we have to think about all the alternatives to protect from imminent danger. If the applicant can just put up sand fencing and vegetation on the bank to protect from imminent danger, they're required to do that. It's our job to figure out what is going to protect from imminent danger, not what's going to protect the houses decades from now, not what's going to protect the road decades from now, what's going to protect from imminent danger for all the lots that are waived for. For the lots that meet the performance standards, they meet the performance standards, so they can put the geotube there. But for the lots that need the waiver, we need to use the least impactful, most environmentally friendly alternative. That is what our regulations tell us.
Just to follow up, we've heard so many complaints in the last year about the core terraces littering the landscape. It doesn't seem to me that that's a better alternative.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's our commission's role to determine if it's a better alternative or not. I know we all have our opinions, but we have to, as a commission, come up with a finding that references that. I'm going to go to Ms. Moldenhauer and then Dr. Dunk and then Linda, go ahead. Meredith, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to repeat, I think, a little bit of what Commissioner Brain was referencing. I think that this commission and in the record, there is more than substantial evidence that obviously identifies that the core terraces are not the best and the most reasonable alternative, that there is plenty of evidence even from this past winter in regards to the damage to the wetland protected area, the dune, the bank, after one small storm, that the geotubes obviously do provide that protection and is the most reasonable alternative that we have analyzed, as well as the fact that as identified, there is a net negative at times from the core terraces that the geotube does not create. So I think that, again, the commission, through you, Chair, to the other commissioners, if they wish to find it, I think that the evidence is there. I don't think that there needs to be, respectfully, any other findings. I think that they could vote. We could vote tonight to support this waiver requirement as is, and as is based on the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Dr. Dunk?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to point out a few things that are in the notice of intent that we have gone through throughout the hearing process, and this has been many, many hearing sessions. So I know some of this information discussion was months and months ago. However, when we look at, you mentioned the lots for which a waiver is requested, as Commissioner, I think it was Commissioner Brain, indicated that, the commission has defined both Coya terraces and geotubes as a CES, such that either of those structures requires a waiver, number one. Number two, we did present a robust alternatives analysis showing that the geotubes were the most effective means to stabilize the bank and to augment and protect the bank's ability to protect the interests of storm damage prevention, flood control, and erosion control, which is a bylaw interest. The other element here is the waivers that are for 73 and 71 are on lots that do have active erosion, And I understand that the 41 feet is a standard, the 40 feet is a standard of imminent danger as written. But those are houses for which cannot move forward, and they are currently have active erosion in front of them. And lastly, on the Coyer Terraces, from 61 to 69, most of that bank does have and is showing active signs of erosion. So the Coyer Terraces have been in place. They're not fully as functional or protective as the geotubes, but it was proposed to have the Coyer Terraces, which would require a waiver, to allow those in phase one, and then only proceed to geotubes for phase two. And this order of conditions has a robust standard for the project to move from phase one to phase two, which would require updated plans, updated surveys, and conditions of that bank. Where we currently see active erosion on those lots, it is the hope that ongoing presence of Coyer Terraces in front of those would help to abate that erosion. But we know that the geotubes effectively stop the retreat and erosion. And then the lots that are shown 41 to 59 do not have a CES in front of them proposed for phase one, and would only go to the Coyer Terrace CES when certain criteria has been met. And we propose that because we have a bank on this reach that is pretty stable, that we think that the sacrificial dune and augmenting the dune would be a non-structural method on this reach to really push back any need for a CES. So the waiver request is there to cover the Coyer Terraces, and then there are conditions in this order that require rigorous review by the commission before it can move from phase one to phase two, or even to go from a sacrificial dune to a Coyer Terrace. And that's why, in looking at it as a full-length project to protect the shoreline from 41 up to the north, we seek to look at this as a single contiguous length project in the waivers to make sure that single contiguous length project can proceed as outlined in the order that you have drafted.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan. Your points are well taken. And without being overly semantic here, just one point is that the text in the performance standards says there's no environmentally better way to control erosion. So we're not talking about what the most effective method is. We're talking about what the most environmentally best way. And we're not talking about stopping erosion. We're talking about controlling, or as Dr. Dunk said, abating. I think that's another word that means the same thing. Environmentally better and controlling. That is our interest here. Also, just one point about the alternatives, and I'll speak very briefly on it because I've spoken in the record on this already. Many of the alternatives presented, including some that were represented by Attorney Nyland today, came from other processes, came from past hearings, came from community-driven efforts, came from Arcadis reports, whatever. Those alternatives were not necessarily looking specifically at what is the most environmentally best way. And for good reason. The point of those reports was to look at community input, what's good for the neighborhood, what's good for the island, what's good for the resiliency, whatever. But our job is to focus only on environmentally better. So if alternatives work better for protecting Baxter Road or for having better infrastructure or access for fire trucks or whatever, that's not in our purview. Our purview is environmentally better. That's all I'll say there. We'll go on to members of the public unless commissioners have anything to say. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going back a little bit, and, I discussed gap lots earlier, and that probably wasn't the best way to term it, but one of my concerns would be with breaking things up would be end scour that we're all familiar with that can happen from any engineering structure. That's not a long-term net benefit for anything in this area. And my closing thought would be controlling the erosion is environmentally stabilizes the area. I agree with Tim that, we're talking about choir terraces versus the more robust structure of a geotube. I would apt to go that way, and I would hope that we could potentially vote on this waiver tonight as well.
Thank you, Mike. And I'll just give one example from the past. So the original pilot project for this reach of Sconset Bank, if you look at the history of the project, what was applied for was a rock revetment. The commission, although in a roundabout way, found that the rock revetment is not the environmentally better way to control erosion. At the time, they found that the geotube was an environmentally better way. We have more information before us now because of the decade of data and the new alternatives, or not really new, but the also data on what's happened with the Coar terraces. If we find as a commission that one is environmentally better, that's our job. I'm not going to say what the commission thinks because I'm one person, but that's our role here. And I'll just say that in making the points about how Coar has negatives to it, I would say it's mostly the mismanagement of projects and the lack of maintenance and the history of violations on site that have caused that. The technology isn't inherently bad. Just like geotextile tubes as a technology may not inherently be bad either. It's not our job, though, to look at what's happened in the past. It's our job to look at what can we put into the resource area to be best moving forward. So Jeff, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I know we were just talking about the waiver. I just want people to keep in mind too. I feel like it was said earlier, but just to have it with, in granting a waiver for this, the performance standard that we've talked a lot relates to the bank. We will also be granting a waiver to a similar performance standard on the coastal beach as well. So
And
when
the
you're
dune.
considering impacts, you need to also factor in the beach and dune because they also are there. In writing this, we're going to have to reference all those sections of the regulations just so everyone, we don't want to miss one because then the waiver is really no good. Because if you're dealing with the waiver for a lot for a dune and you haven't granted that waiver, then there's a permit problem. So when you're thinking of those impacts and how things relate environmentally, be sure you're just considering all those resource areas, not just the bank.
Thank you. And I tried to talk about this cohesively, but to break it out a little bit, when we grant the waiver, we're going to have to find either or both that for the coastal beach, there's no reasonable alternatives, no adverse impacts, and or there's a long-term net benefit. For the coastal bank, we'll need to find that there's either or a long-term net benefit or no reasonable alternatives, no adverse impacts. And for the coastal dune, we'll need to find those same things. So for any of those areas, we can't find that. That will not allow the project to proceed in that area. Commissioners, any final comments before we move on to the public? We'll get back to you, but I know people have had their hands up for a long time at this point. Okay, if you would please introduce yourself for the record and say your piece.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. Unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to see the new information that was in the packet, so I haven't actually referred directly to that. But in listening to the discussion tonight specifically about this waiver request, I just wanted to encourage and ask the board before voting on it to refer back to and consider some information that was provided to you many months ago now, back in April, from the Land and Water Council and from Coastal Analytics, specifically about alternatives and specifically about the use of core terraces and or core berm in some of these areas, which go into quite a bit of detail about why they should be considered reasonable alternatives. And I know it's been some time since you've seen those, so before actually voting on this waiver, I would really encourage the commission to take a look at those again. I think that as Chair Engelberg mentioned, one of the really important components is in considering different alternatives, what the environmental impact and implications of each of those are, and that absolutely is the role of the commission. I think that as far as the core goes, it's a lot easier to see some of those impacts and the implications of those, but when you're considering a longer, more extensive installation of a hard structure like a geotube, the longer and more continuous and extensive that is, the greater the negative impact is going to be. I think all of the literature points towards those harder structures as being much more impactful in a negative way to the adjacent beach. Certainly end scour along the edges, and certainly the longer term downdrift impacts, which I believe there's also a lot of evidence in your packet as to what those negative impacts from the existing geotubes have been, particularly in instances when the mitigation has not been adequate. And I think it's a lot easier to see what geotubes do as far as protecting the bank and helping to control erosion, but it's a lot harder to see, but it's so important to consider the negative impacts that they have as far as exacerbating erosion in other areas. And so I agree and would really implore the commission to carefully consider, as far as what your role is in permitting the best alternative out here, the environmental implications of these options. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And sorry to keep repeating myself, but it's not the best alternative. It's the environmentally better alternative. I hate to be like super semantic, but that is our job. Best is subjective, environmentally better, I guess, is subjective as well, but is related to our role as a commission. Anyone else physically present in the room wishing to make a comment? Okay. Can we take a comment from Deanne Atherton? Dr. Dunk, I see you, and I'll recognize you after these comments. Yeah, I
Thank you,
see
Mr.
that as
Chair.
well. Please identify yourself for the record and then say your piece.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Deanne Atherton. Can we turn on the video? Maybe we can't. At any rate.
No.
Okay. I'm speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Coastal Conservancy, which is an all-volunteer advocacy nonprofit organization. And our focus is on preserving and protecting Nantucket's coastal resources, especially the beaches. We have been engaged with this issue since our founding in 2012. And if the beach in question were not a public beach, I don't think we would be paying as close attention. What we'd like to do tonight is to remind you of a fairly substantial submission that we provided. It's dated October 11th, and it is substantial because it has extensive documentation that verifies the fact that there is a reasonable alternative to a coastal engineering structure. That has not been analyzed. It was not analyzed by the applicants in the NOI, and it has not been referenced to date. I'm not, there's been so much, it's been so many months and there've been so much information submitted. I'm not sure that all of the commissioners or any of them have read our 70-page document. The alternative is much more environmentally friendly. It will have little to no negative environmental impact. The alternative we're referring to has been proven to be practical, effective, environmentally superior, and that is to relocate the structures at imminent risk out of harm's way into the road layout. The road layout of Baxter Road varies, but it is at the minimum 50 feet and it expands in certain sections. The asphalt is 20 feet. There is room in the road layout to move the houses on the east side of Baxter Road into the road layout if they're granted an easement by the town. This alternative, the efficacy of this alternative has already been demonstrated by 2 property owners on Baxter Road. The property owner at 109 in 2013, who received an easement from the town and relocated their home westward. Then in 2019, the new owner of 115 and 117 Baxter Road did the same thing. They secured an easement from the town and relocated their house actually to their northern lot at 117 and a bit westward into the road layout. I won't go into all the detail. Our submission outlines that and contains all the documentation, but we truly believe that the commission cannot find that there is no alternative to a coastal engineering structure when there is one. And it has already been demonstrated to be effective.
Thank you, Deanne.
Thank you.
So, you know, we can't speak for the town as to whether easements would be granted or not. That's not our purview. But as a matter of course, it related to the properties that she referenced, they have been granted for other projects. I'll just say in general, it's the burden of proof is on the applicant to figure out if something like that is possible or not. So we'll leave it at that. And I will recognize Trey Ruthven. Or just before I do that, in relation to Deanne's comment, we did receive your submission. I find it a bit offensive that you don't think any commissioners read it. Let's give credit to our commissioners here. We have received thousands of pages of documentation from applicants, the public, and other people, and I believe everyone's read it all. So let's give credit to the commissioners here. That being said, we'll recognize Mr. Ruthven. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to talk, it's interesting that we're starting to talk about alternatives this late in the whole hearing process when we wanted to discuss them earlier. Obviously, with this NOI, there was no alternatives looked at. They were just pulling from old reports, as you had said, but not actually evaluating. It's interesting if you go back to the June 2006 SPBF NOI submittal, which was for a beach nourishment, literally reading the executive summary, the first words, it says, SPBF is proposing this critically and urgently needed project to protect and restore Sconset shoreline, as well as benefit adjacent beaches north and south of the project area by supplementing the regional deficit of sediment supply. And if, you know, we're trying to look for an alternative that is the least impactful, we don't have it right now. We need to look at some of these softer solutions that we have proven all around the country that work. I mean, we can look at these case studies one by one. The interesting part about this report from 2006, it actually was written by Gordon Thompson. So he was the one promoting doing beach nourishment here. And so I think it's critical that, we take a look at all these alternatives and actually define which one is the most environmentally sensitive going forward. Because if once you put coastal structures on Sconset Beach, you are going to start seeing erosion, like Dr. Kriebel has already shown you. We obviously have a massive deficit in the mitigation plan that's been not put out, and it's showing what happens if we cannot take care of the coastline there.
Thank you, Mr. Ruthven.
You're
I'll
welcome.
request from all speakers that we please do not make comments that are directed as attacks. It's clear that the applicant has provided alternatives. Whether the commission finds those to be robust enough is a different question, but let's just refrain from that type of behavior. Any other members of the public? Burton Balkine, go ahead.
Burton Balkind. I had a question, Mr. Chair. Has there been a finding by the commission or staff that the beach in front of the present geotubes has been harmed?
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm just going to go on record to say I'm going to pass the hot potato. Staff never makes findings. That's the job of the commission.
That is definitely true. It's the staff's role to provide administrative support to the commission, and we thank them gratefully. If they weren't here, you would only wonder how long our hearings would go for. But it is the commission's job as appointed members of a regulatory commission to make findings, not the staff's job. As to whether there's a specific finding that the fronting beach was harmed, I don't know if that specific finding is there, but the reason for the enforcement order on SC 48, 28, 24 was related to a finding that the beach was likely harmed. Or we never, I said, necessarily scientifically, factually proved that, but it was based on likely harm.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that.
Mr. Ruthven, do you have a follow-up comment?
No, I apologize. I didn't take down my hand.
Okay. Commissioners, anything to make a comment or question on based on the testimony that's there? All right. So Mr. Nyland, I see you, but before I recognize you, I think it's clear that the applicant here has provided extensive documentation of their position. We'll request that Dr. Dunk submit his maps for further review, but they've submitted multiple letters. It's clear that members of the public have submitted other extensive documentation showing that alternatives exist that might be more environmentally better. And it's clear that the commissioners have talked about this for a while and said some of their own points. So we say the burden of proof is on the applicant to show us if there's an environmentally better alternative. But ultimately, at some point, we need to review all that information, not just the applicant's information, but all the information in the packet. And it's going to be your jobs after reviewing that to make a decision. If you think no, then we'll proceed with the waiver. If we think yes, then we'll talk about alternatives. But respectfully, I don't think that we should do that tonight because we need to go back and look at those submissions. Linda, go ahead.
We keep going round and round on alternatives. I do remember a substantial amount of information, probably 3 or 4 months ago, where we specifically talked about and asked them to submit stuff about proving the alternatives and why they didn't work. I don't know if I want to revisit that again. I mean, we spent a lot of time looking at their information, talking about their information, And I'm comfortable with what they submitted several months ago about the alternatives that don't work, because we specifically asked for that. So I think one meeting we talked about just that. So I don't need any more information on what alternatives don't work and what do work. I think I have that. But if you're asking us to go back and look at all that information again before we close the hearing at this meeting or the next meeting, I don't need to do that again personally.
Okay, that's fine personally. It's up to each commissioner's purview to do that. I'll just remind you, it's your regulatory responsibility to review all information and make your assessment on that. But if you think you've appropriately reviewed it, then I'll trust you. Mr. Nyland, please go ahead.
So thank you. I just want to respond to a couple of points that have been made. With respect to the waivers, we agree with Jeff that we're looking for the waivers for each of the resource areas, not just bank, but for each of the resource areas. Second, with respect to the alternatives, what's sometimes lost here is this is a sand-covered quar and sand-covered geotubes. And we also have a sacrificial dune. So to suggest that this is just all one geotube for several thousand feet is incorrect. The alternatives were incorporated into the project design so that where the most effective and most reasonable alternative was selected, whether it be a sacrificial dune or for dune nourishment or a quar, or if that doesn't work, then to the geotube. This has specifically been phased to take into account that alternatives analysis, which rejected gabions, it rejected the rock revetments, and while it did take a look at other other measures that had been used either in Nantucket or other communities, it arrived at the quars and the geotubes as the most effective, comprehensive way to approach the protection of these resource areas. Remember that the waiver requirement is for granting waivers from the operation of one or more of the regulations pursuant to this section. So we're asking for a waiver from the performance standards for each of those resource areas based upon the considerable alternatives analysis that we've put in front of you. And, and yes, do we look at resource areas? And ultimately, the easiest one is the coastal bank, because to the extent that there is no protection, then the coastal bank will be lost and there will be no functioning coastal bank. And that also applies to the other resource areas. So we've taken into account protecting the resource areas as well as their function. So what we're looking to do, and if it's either tonight or at the next meeting, is to ask the commission if they're prepared to vote on all of the waivers together rather than going piecemeal, because I certainly hear from the commission a divergence of opinion as to whether or not they have sufficient information to be able to make the finding to grant the waivers on a general basis rather than having to go lot by lot.
Thank you, Mr. Nyland. And yes, I think some commissioners seem to have made up their mind and feel like they have sufficient information, and others maybe not so. Emily, would you like to speak again?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a follow-up question, a little bit more big picture with regard to the waivers. I just wanted to clarify if in the record somewhere, if the applicant has provided a written request outlining each of the performance standards that they're looking to have waived and sort of justification for those waivers for each, because that's not something that I've seen, but it may be in there, and I wanted to request that if it hasn't been provided.
Yes, this letter has been received by the commission, but because of the snafu with circulation and posting, has not been posted for the public. This is another reason why I think it's immature to have this vote at this hearing tonight. And I'll again recognize that was not the applicant's responsibility or a mistake. That was something that was done by us, so we take the responsibility for that. But yeah, with that being said, it's not a good practice to, talk about things that are supposed to be public record that actually aren't posted in our packet. So, yeah, Linda, go ahead.
I do agree with that because I was sort of looking for that particular thing on the packet and it wasn't in the packet. So I do think we should hold it for a review of that letter because I think it's pretty dispository and then take this up at the next meeting.
So real quickly, I just want to clarify. It is posted now, so people,
Yeah,
anyone can get it. It's on the regular, it's not in the regular meeting pack. It's in the specific GeoTube SPPF application pack, but it is up as of late this afternoon. And again, apologize for our oversight there.
I didn't have time to see it.
Yeah, thank you for posting that. If it could get into the actual meeting packet for the next meeting, and, it was posted within the past few hours, I don't think that's sufficient for the public.
I would agree with that. I just want to make sure that everyone knew it is up.
Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that I myself, speaking only for myself, I'm in agreement with you on the next meeting for diving deeper into this waiver issue so everybody has a chance to see the letter. But I do want to say that I am comfortable with the alternatives analysis as we've seen to date. We've been looking at it since last November. There's always more discussion to have there, but I'm comfortable with what we've seen so far, just speaking for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think we should wait till next meeting, but I'm pretty satisfied and feel I have enough information, so.
Thank you, Tim. Any other commissioners? I see Will's hand first, and then we'll go to Jeff after that.
Just a quick note, and nobody shoot crazy daggers at me for what I'm about to suggest, but whenever we do get to continuing to a date certain, we may want to think about an alternate week because December's looking a little wild. I just want to have everybody consider it. It might be impossible to schedule, but I just wanted to pop in if.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Mine wasn't as doom and gloomy as Will's, so it's all right. I was just going to say, just kind of given the conversation tonight and to help with organizational purposes, we hadn't written one up before because we were kind of waiting for the conversation, but just to sort it out, would it be helpful on the order just to make sure it's clear on the draft for you guys which sections are being requested and for what that the applicant provided, just to kind of sort it out a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in the draft that we're working with right now, it still says no waiver required. So we need at least some preliminary information on the waiver as that the performance standards that are being requested to be waived.
We'll rough up waiver language based upon the request provided.
Thank you. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Is it possible, thank you, Mr. Chair, is it possible to get an alternative meeting, staff?
Before we talk about that, I want to reference Mr. Nyland to see if he has a point that is not related to scheduling, that's related to the actual application. So go ahead.
Mine actually is exactly what Mike was asking for. I think it seems to me that the consensus is that we want to move on to the next meeting to have this discussion. I would suggest that we have a standalone meeting for this project. You have lots of other items on your agenda, and it's good to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours, and we may be able to get through this. So I know December's tough, I hear Will, but I think it'd be a good time to have a special meeting.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Nyland, we all agree with you theoretically. I think we've always agreed with that. Logistics and strategy are two different beasts. So let's talk about potential dates and then let's go from there.
So
hold on. Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest 4 o'clock is certainly possible. Our next, if we stick to Thursdays, right? I think next week is probably not a good week for meetings, just given the holiday.
Thanksgiving meeting.
Hey, just as a point of record, the first emergency request for this was the week of Thanksgiving, so it's not unheard of, but I won't be here, so we'll go from there. Our next regular meeting is December the 5th, right? That's the first Thursday of December. And we have another regular meeting on December 19th. I think, and please, audience, don't take offense to this. For a special meeting, I think if worst case scenario, we can probably meet in a smaller space just to go over this. That doesn't have to be here. So I think flexibility wise for location for the meeting, we could be here. We might be able to go upstairs. We might be able to use either one of the meeting rooms in the meeting trailer at 131 Pleasant Street. I think
Or
a
we could
physical
do
location
completely
is,
remote if we need to.
yeah, it can even be all remote. So I think anywhere in there, I guess my suggestion would be, especially with next week being Thanksgiving, and we're probably not going to get a lot of submissions next week for this just because of the holiday. If we continue to the 5th, and at the 5th, we pick any date that's within 48 hours. So we could realistically do from the 10th of December onward to pick any date. We can do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever day it needs to be. But if people look at their schedules and know and have a couple, we could do that. I would threaten a doodle poll, but I know how the commission feels about those.
Yeah, I can't stand those things.
I
Don't do that
love,
poll
I
again.
love.
Don't
when
do
to-
that poll
when to
again.
meet, that's a good one.
I have a comment.
Calendly, Doodle has gone downhill over the years.
Yeah, I can't
Yes,
stand that
Linda,
thing.
go ahead.
Can we start at 4 o'clock on the 5th? I do not have a date at all after the 14th of December. I'm going to be in Florida. I got family coming from Australia and everywhere else. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, Linda, the answer theoretically is absolutely yes. Commissioners, give a thumbs up if you can start at 4. All right, if we can't have a room, can we move the meeting to completely remote?
Well, that's the 5th.
We're allowed to, the governor's order hasn't
No, we
expired.
can go,
We can get 4 o'clock on the 5th.
we would have to post it as a separate meeting from the regular meeting to do that,
Well, let's post
which
it.
is okay.
Let's post it.
Go for it, Will.
Yeah, Will, go ahead.
I'm going to make everybody aware of one thing, and I'm down, and I will bring a 4-pack of Red Bull, but we have 31 NOIs on December 5th, so heavily consider this, and Linda, Zoom works in Florida.
I cannot do on Zoom at all after the 15th.
It might be terrible.
I mean, we have to continue this until at least the 5th.
The 5th, anyway.
We have
Yeah.
to. We're
So you might as
we're
well go
required.
Why
4
don't-
o'clock on the 5th and see where we go.
Why don't we'll do 4 o'clock on the 5th. We'll figure out, it may be all remote. We can all come hang out there, and then we'll have to adjourn with enough time for people to travel physically here if we can't physically be here at 4.
Can I ask one last question, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, what does people's schedules look like on Wednesday the 4th? People free on Wednesday?
No, I have an appeal at the Board of Selectmen, so I cannot do the 4th.
In the old days, Concom and Select Board were at the same time, so.
Yeah, well, I'm representing the appeal, so I cannot miss the Select Board meeting on the 5th.
All right,
4th.
all right.
What
Yeah,
about-
Mike, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. If we do meet early on the 4th, can we just change locations? Like if the 5th, if the trailer was available, could we just stay there through the whole meeting so we don't have to jump around, or we just changed our location?
Yeah, we haven't posted that meeting, so we certainly could do that if that space is available at that time. We'll have to check.
The only reason the trailer, Mr. Chairman, the trailer may be an issue on the 5th is because of how many hearings we have that day, and that room is not big enough.
Well,
Can we
So-
talk about like crazy ideas? What about during the day meetings? I mean, what if we had a meeting at 10 o'clock one day instead of in the evening? I know you guys have a job that requires you being there, but
I would make myself available.
I don't mind doing earlier.
all right, let's talk. I mean, we're here. Let's talk about it.
I'll speak for Will and I. We prefer daytime meetings.
Okay. All right. All right.
Bring lunch.
Thursday is kind of bad, but Wednesday, anytime from 9 to noon? Can people do anytime from? The 4th, Wednesday the 4th, 9 to noon.
I can't help you.
Okay, Tuesday the 3rd, 9 to noon.
I'm all right with Tuesday, the 3rd.
I'm good.
3rd, 9 to noon? What time works best?
10 o'clock?
I take it back. I can do. I'm sorry.
Fourth's back in play. Third or fourth, Tuesday or Wednesday?
The 4th's easier for me. 10 o'clock on the 4th?
10 o'clock?
Representatives from the applicants, would you be willing to make that date? Yeah, I have to be done by 1 PM
Yeah, I
too,
have a
so.
meeting at 1.
Don't take this the wrong way for everybody. If we're still going at 1 PM, brains will be putty. So we'll
putty
need to
after
stop
an
by then
hour.
anyways.
Mr. Nyland, would you be willing to continue to Wednesday, December 4th at 10 AM?
I think I'm missing Dr. Dunk. I'm available, but I'm trying to caucus here.
Yeah,
For you.
I'm unavailable on 12/4 between 9 and 12.
I don't
Okay.
need him anymore.
If it works for you, Chip and Meredith, maybe you can proceed without me and I'll join as soon as I can.
Those two are fine.
Yeah, I mean, as long as some representative is there, but to be fair to the applicant, I guess we can talk about the Tuesday, the 3rd too. Are the three of you available on Tuesday, the 3rd? Tim's
I
not
would rather
available.
be Wednesday.
Okay, it has to be Wednesday, I'm sorry. So,
They can
Would you-
compensate for that date.
yeah, you can send a comment letter,
Yeah.
you can provide your comments to Chip or anyone else, and obviously watch the recording and then send comments in afterwards as well. Mr. Nyland, do
Yeah.
you assent to the continuance to Wednesday, December 4th at 10 AM?
Yes, we do.
That will continue to that date.
Do you need a motion to that effect?
Is it a procedural question? Yes, Emily, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just if we were to want to submit anything in advance of that hearing, what would the date be for
Next Friday?
that?
That's a question for Jeff or Will.
Next Friday?
I would say if you could get it to us, I think we'll give a little leeway for the holiday. I would say if it can be in by no later than noon on Monday the 2nd, we'll get it posted by 1, and then everyone will have just shy of 48 hours to review it if it comes in.
No, you gotta post it by 10.
No, the meeting will be posted.
Okay,
We're talking about if someone submits a comment
Letters,
letter.
yeah.
okay.
The meeting, trust, we'll probably post that meeting tomorrow,
Okay.
just to get it done.
Just, yeah.
And
Okay,
just
I'll
so we
make that
know,
motion.
that meeting's gonna be only 2 hours max, and hopefully that's enough, but after
God,
noon,
it
I
better
have
be
stuff to
enough.
do, so.
Okay. I'll make a motion to continue this to.
We don't need a motion, the
Okay.
applicant's already assented to it, it's already been continued, so we're gonna move on to the next item in our agenda, but before I do that, I just want to say with grace, thank you all for sticking with us today, and the applicant's representatives, thank you for being flexible, because I know this is difficult sometimes, but we appreciate your flexibility.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank
can I
you
request
to the
a
commission.
2-minute break?
Yes, we could have a 2-minute break until 6:36.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you. I have an extreme sensitivity to caffeine. If I start drinking Red Bull, it's gonna be bad. Yes, sir. I used to be able to get by with one single shot, not double shot, one single shot of espresso once every 3 days.
Okay, we'll be sure to,
I drink black.
we'll note it on the calendar, we'll be sure to avoid those. Keep in mind, it's good. Before anyone talks really bad.
I think I turned on one.
Or there's always like the pickup.
They're gonna hear me about my caffeine sensitivity. I have caffeine sensitivity too.
Good luck, everybody. Enjoy the rest.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Is it me or is it getting cold? Did I make it? Okay.
Linda, if you can come back, we're gonna get started. We did the land bank at Gardner Farm. Yep. What numbers? Five?
The right one. Yes, I do. Says 47 Crooked Lane.
It's called, you know what? It's Crooked Lane. It's the same. It's
Same
also
thing.
Nantucket.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're gonna adjourn from our break. And we're gonna come back into session, I guess we should say. And we will be picking up in the notices of intent section at 44 Mattocket Road Realty Trust at 44 Mattocket Road, SC 483817, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. I believe this hearing was closed at the last meeting, and we just hadn't issued the order. It hadn't been yet drafted at that time.
Thank you. I believe you're correct because we don't have anything in our packet for it. So anyways,
No worries.
anyways, we will be moving on to Capri's Island Holding LLC at 47 Crooked Lane, SC 483823, represented by Brian Madden with Commissioner Williams recused. Brian, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants representing the applicant. We presented this project at the last meeting and had continued awaiting Natural Heritage's letter, which we did receive yesterday, confirming that the proposed project will not result in an adverse effect on the actual resource area, habitat, or state protected rare wildlife species. And they did confirm that the project is exempt from MISA review as the work activities that do minimally extend into the priority habitat are exempt activities. And again, that's all within existing lawn conditions. And I believe that's what we were waiting on.
Thank you, Brian. Questions or comments from members of the commission? Seeing none, questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Affirmative.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, RJ, for the second. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
All right. And now we'll be moving on to Hall, 19 Medallion Creek Road, SC 48 3820, represented by David Haynes with Commissioner Turcott recused. David, good evening.
Good evening. We almost closed this hearing last time. It's for the relocation of the existing driveway and for the construction of a small second dwelling and installation of a parking area and utilities. I asked that you continued it because I had found out after the fact that they wanted to put in a full basement, or they might want to put in a full basement, and I wanted to make sure we had the 2-foot groundwater separation. Since that time, a test pit has been done, found the groundwater elevation to be at 10 feet, and it works well with us. We put on the plan that the base of any footings that were used for a foundation would be above 12. And so that meets the 2-foot groundwater separation and does not require a waiver. So with that, some of the work will be within the buffer zone. No work will occur within 50 feet of the vegetated wetland. And all structures obviously will be greater than 50 feet from the vegetated wetland. All soils will be stabilized with seeding, with native grasses, and we'll proceed from there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Questions or comments from members of the commission? Questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, please approach the mic, introduce yourself for the record, and then say your piece.
Hi, Willa Arsenault speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council.
Yes.
Willa Arsenault speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. Just in reviewing this application, it would appear that significant vegetation has to move for the second dwelling parking area. And we're curious if it could be moved to the other side of the second dwelling, the proposed second dwelling.
Mr. Haynes, did you hear the comment?
I'm not sure what the concern is. There's some trees and shrubs up there and along that northern border. But it's all outside of the wetland.
I believe the request, if I hear it correctly, is for those trees and shrubs to be relocated. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the plan. It's the proposed 2-car parking on the left-hand side of the proposed structure is in a heavily vegetated area, and then to the right of it is not vegetated.
Okay, so the speaker is requesting information about the proposed 2-car parking at the northwest side of the lot on the west side of the proposed structure, and wondering if it's possible to have the proposed 2-car parking relocated to the east side of the proposed structure rather than the west side, given the vegetation on that location.
I would have to check with the applicant to see if that's the way they would prefer it. I mean, it does meet the performance standards, and I see the concern. I would have to check with them, and I don't have an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. And with respect to the speaker as well, in order to request something like that, we would have to find that there is, some benefit to the wetland buffer zone or the wetland resource area itself of moving that parking. So if you could provide some justification for why you think that would be, whether it's from a letter or photos of that area, we would appreciate that.
Thank you.
Linda?
Simply from the aerial, I'm looking at the Google area, I'm looking at the GIS from 2023. There looks like there's more room where it's proposed now than there is as we get towards the top of the existing driveway. So I have no concern about this.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes, would you wish to speak again?
I would like to close this and get a permit, and if I will talk to them, the applicant, about moving it to the other side, and if he is willing to do that, I'll ask him to do that, but I'd like to close it. Meets the regulations, but I understand the concern, and I should have seen that before. But I will bring it, I'd be happy to bring it up with them and see if they're willing to do that. I know they're in the design phase, so it might be a matter of, it might be sliding the house over a little bit and then putting it over there. I mean, I don't know why they put the driveway on that side.
Well, they're moving the driveway.
So thank you. So commissioners, we would have to really have evidence to make a finding showing that having the driveway area in that location and not in the easterly location would somehow cause more impacts to one of our protected interests, be it wildlife or stormwater prevention or any of the interests. And in the absence of that information, our options are to close the hearing and let Mr. Haynes talk with his client, or our options are to keep the hearing open to request the information. I think with respect to the speaker, there really isn't enough justification to delay the permitting process. I think we should close the hearing. I hear what they're saying, and I think it is reasonable, but really these types of things need to be submitted when the applications come in. But I don't know how other commissioners feel.
Do we have enough information to close it?
Yeah, Will, we have all the required information, right?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, before you do that, let's make sure that people, well, you made the motion, but is there a second to the motion?
Well, can I ask a question?
No, we have a motion on the floor. We need either a second or no second. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now for discussion. Yes, John, go ahead.
So where the proposed two-car parking now meets the standard, that's right, Mr. Haynes?
Yeah, it meets the standard. It's outside of the 25-foot buffer. It's, it's not anything that would require a waiver. It meets the standard.
Right.
The member of the public is indicating that they would prefer it to not be there due to the heavy vegetation on site, which I certainly hear as a scientist. But as a regulator, we would need some actual evidence showing that putting the driveway in the east part of the structure versus where it's proposed on the west would have a greater benefit to one of our protected interests. And we don't have that right now. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for my own benefit, it's outside of the 100, so I don't see how that would even fit our jurisdiction at the moment.
It is not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, okay. Sorry, I'm
Outside of the
looking.
50-foot buffer, but within the 100.
All right, I'm just looking at the wrong side.
So, yes, Will, go ahead.
I can give a super brief staff opinion if it's warranted, but
Yes, it's warranted.
just as this meets the performance standards, if we, I think basically how we can look at this, we can issue the permit and David can speak with his client, and if the client is willing to relocate the parking, it could be an amended order or a minor mod, but I'm not sure that we can, as you've been saying, but.
Thank you, Will. And I appreciate Mr. Haynes' willingness to speak with his client to hopefully consider their opinion on that, to allay the public's concern. But as everyone said, it meets the performance standards. as proposed. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded. We're going to move to a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously with, among the commissioners sitting, with Commissioner Turcotte recused. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on now to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, Lily Pond's Park Improvements, SE 483827, and also Nantucket Islands Land Bank, Lily Pond Park Wetland Restoration, SE 483826.
We can do them together, right?
We are doing them together, and these are represented by Liz Phelps. So Liz, if you're there, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening again, Commissioners. Liz Phelps, representing Nantucket Islands Land Bank. We presented both these applications during the last hearing, and we're just waiting for a DEP number, which we've received. So I think we can close it unless anyone has any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Liz. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Questions or comments from members of the public? Will, do we indeed have everything we need to close
Indubitably.
on both?
Indubitably times two. Wow. Indeed. Yes. Affirmative.
Is there a motion to close? Or
So
actually,
moved.
before, Liz, I'm assuming you want to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close both of them.
Those are
7 and 8.
3826 and 3827.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously with all commissioners sitting. How about that?
How about that?
Liz, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll be now moving on to Coda LLC at 42 Shimma Pond Road, SE 483825, represented by Art Gasparo with Commissioner Turcotte recused. Art, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm back before you tonight for the second public hearing related to this notice of intent application for residential redevelopment at this property fronting on Nantucket Harbor. And I know you're having a long night, so I'll just try to make it quick. And then if there was some questions about a proposed retaining wall that was going to remain within the 50-foot or be new within the 50-foot buffer zone. And so I provided correspondence and a letter where we've detailed out the amount of structural elements which are being removed from both the 25 and 50-foot buffer zones. So I'd like to just quickly run through those as we believe the project overall represents a very significant net benefit to the protected interests. Right now, there is an asphalt driveway completely within the 25-foot buffer zone that would be removed and replaced with a pervious surface. That's just over 2,000 square feet. There would be there's no other dry asphalt proposed or existing within 0 to 25 or 25 to 50. There are existing decks, portion of house within the 25-foot buffer zone totaling about 228 square feet. The proposed conditions are 0. Those same elements, there's about 1,144 square feet between the 25 and 50. There are 0 proposed in the proposed condition. And then for retaining walls, there are none within the 0 to 25 existing or proposed. Existing is about 38 square feet, and we've got a proposed 10-foot retaining wall within the buffer zone. And again, it's on the opposite side of what's an existing asphalt driveway to a policy coastal bank. So we believe that there's both no adverse impact as a result of that, as well as significant net benefit for the overall project. With that, I'd be happy to try to address questions or concerns, and I hope that the additional information satisfies the questions.
Thank you, Art. Linda?
I'm satisfied. They're removing a substantial amount. That's an awful lot closer by moving everything backwards. So I'm comfortable with that, as you proposed it in your additional information.
Other commissioners, questions or comments? Yes, John?
Is there some big grade changes there? That's why you're doing the wall?
There's a lot of topography on this site relative Nantucket.
Other commissioners? All right, it's my turn, I guess. The plant list. I love 90% of this plant list, but in Zone E, you have on the list the Pinus thunbergii thunderhead, the thunderhead pine, or the species is the Japanese black pine. That species actually just got put on the Massachusetts prohibited plant list, so we certainly can't have that. That needs to come out. Honestly, there's a couple other cultivars in Zone C and E, but really, we definitely can't have the thunderhead pine. That's a prohibited plant. Japanese black pine, this is a cultivar of Japanese black pine, so even worse than.
Hey, it might be sterile.
It might, well, it's, they,
may not be able to.
there is a phase out period where the sales for that species are still permitted until December 31st of 2025, but let's not put that on this slide. Yeah, go ahead, Art.
So certainly strike that, and the other ones, I worked with the landscape architects, and that's why they have them in the different zones. I provided the list, and they very much tried to stick with all of the native species. And then the portion with the cultivars, I believe, are right up against the house. So they've tried to design with that in mind. And I can't, part of being here in person, I can't see if on your online list if Ms. Harris or Mr. Waller are actually in the meeting.
I'll check for you. To be fair, the Japanese black pine or the thunderhead pine, that's my biggest concern. The other ones are kind of like
we'll strike that.
Garden cultivars that aren't really going to do anything, but I don't see either of the people that you referenced, but that species certainly has to come out.
Certainly, and thank you. And so that you know, we did work that out, and that's why the drawing has been developed in those zones to keep those plants out.
Thunderhead pine is a cultivar of Japanese black pine. The species is the same, it's just cultivar.
Both of them are out now.
Yeah, any cultivar of, I honestly didn't even,
There's a lot.
I didn't even know there was cultivars of Japanese black pine until I saw this this submission, to be honest. So I learned something today. But yeah, it's the species that matters, not the cultivar. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a comment we have a hand raised from Joe Waller. Can we bring
That's the
them
landscape
over?
architect.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Joe Waller with Stimson Landscape Architects. Just wanted to reiterate what Art said. We can substitute that Japanese black pine from the plant list. That's fine.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
We have everything.
Do we have everything we need to close, Will?
Indubitably.
Oh my God, he's gonna keep going with that word.
Art, would you like to close?
Indubitably.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, we'll close on that word.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Linda and a second from Mike. So by voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? So Commissioner Turcotte is recused, and among those sitting, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
I'm recused from
Yep,
Washington.
I got them all. Don't worry.
Going this way.
All right. So next, we have 99 Washington LLC at 103 Washington Street, SC 48 3828, represented by Paul Santos with Commissioner Williams recused. Paul, good evening. Or maybe we have Chloe today.
Hi, guys.
Chloe, good evening.
Good evening. Will, I think Paul had emailed you earlier. The only thing that we needed, you guys had discussed this last meeting. We just didn't have the SE number, but now we do. So we should be good to go. Nothing further.
Thank you, Chloe. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Questions or comments from members of the public? Will, do we indubitably have everything we need to close?
Yes.
Chloe, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
We'll take the motion from Mike and the second from Joe. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Commissioner Williams is recused, but among those sitting, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to Syracuse, 2 L Street, SE 48 3821, represented by David Haynes.
I believe we closed this hearing last time. We did receive a file number just before the meeting started, but we never.
Yeah, we close this, right?
I believe you were just waiting for a DEP number, so it may have still been open, correct?
I don't,
You gotta
I
close
don't
it
think
still.
it was open.
I wasn't here, apologies.
Because it came in, but it didn't get a chance to get on the record.
You emailed it to Jeff during the meeting, right?
During the meeting.
I mean, I can then reintroduce it. It's very simple, and I can make it quick if that makes it more legal.
Well, we can't close the hearing twice. If it's already closed, it's already closed, so. Will, do you know for sure, or are we gonna look at the recording real quick?
It may have stayed open because we didn't get it in time.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it stayed open.
Sorry,
well,
I'm gonna jump in, and I'm sorry, Mr. Haynes, to interrupt you, good sir, but I do believe this one was still open. I talked to Jeff about these yesterday because I had to get keyed in. But if nobody else remembers,
I think it's still open.
I believe this one was open.
Okay.
Because we were missing, and sorry to keep going, but I texted Jeff some DEP numbers, but I think this one was still MIA at the time.
So I'll make a
Is
motion
it-
to close it.
Yeah, so we have everything we need to close? Are there questions or comments from members of the public, or commissioners, sorry? Members of the public? Seeing none, Linda, would you like to make a motion?
I'll
to
make a
close?
motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries unanimously. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right. Before we move on, Will, are we sure that we closed 44 Mattocket Road Realty Trust?
Pretty sure about that one.
Sorry, I was lost on which one we were on. Yes, it was just the 2 L Street.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right. So we'll be moving on to the Pops Lane Holdings Trust, 3 Pops Lane, SC 48 3830, represented by Brian Madden with Commissioner Williams recused. Brian, hello again.
Thanks so much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants representing the applicant. The proposed project involves reconstruction of a single-family dwelling with appurtenances, resource areas on the subject parcel. The property abuts Heather's Creek, so we have salt marsh along Heather Creek. The flood zone elevation 8 intercepts a slope that meets the definition of a coastal bank. So we have delineated the top of the coastal bank based on the policy, DEP's policy and the bylaw. Proposed project is all located upgrading of the 25-foot buffer zone. The new dwelling is proposed outside the 50-foot buffer zone. There's a septic upgrade that's being proposed well outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We are proposing a dry well to collect runoff from the proposed structures. There's some other site improvements that are located outside the 100-foot buffer zone, but there are no waivers required for this project. And I'd be happy to turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Questions or comments from members of the commission? Members of the public, anything to add? Yes, please approach the microphone, introduce yourself for the record, any connection you may have to the project, such as an abutter or a representative, and then say your piece.
Joseph Gay, representing an abutter, John and Sarah Hendrickson at 341 Nantucket Road. It's the property just to the west of the applicant. And just by way of a comment, this is entirely new construction that's being proposed through the HDC. And it would involve substantial excavation for a full basement, as well as a structure about 124 feet in length and 42 feet in width. This is all being proposed to be constructed substantially within the 100-foot buffer. At present, there is a house that exists with a portion of it within the 100-foot buffer. This would substantially all be proposed to be developed within that 100-foot buffer. The concern as the immediate abutter to the west is whether this would further erode the coastal bank, cause an alteration to the coastal bank, destabilize the coastal bank, and the fragile resource area in that area. And with that in mind, the abutter would ask this board to give serious consideration about maybe the applicant moving back the project away from the 100-foot buffer and not have all this work performed and require approvals by this board. On a separate note, and I have photos of the applicant's property as well.
Sorry to cut you off, but we need the photos at some point. We need them submitted to the NRD staff. And if you're going to show them, we actually need them brought around so that people can see.
And I'd be more than happy to bring them around.
Yep. And so pass them around and then go back to the mic and say what you're going to say about it. And then Mike, if you'd be kind to bring them back up. Yeah. And then, yep, at some point you'll have to send these via email to Will. He can give you his card if you need it. But yeah, please feel free to say what you want to say about the photos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe Will was made aware, I believe my client contacted Will relative what is shown by these photos, which was an alteration made to the coastal bank without permit relief by the applicant. And I just wanted to bring it to this board's attention that there was a significant alteration, a good 5 to 8 foot in width coastal bank cut across the coastal bank and the salt marsh to access Hither Creek. And my client contacted Will as far as maybe having the board take a view of this area because of the concern on what has already been done in the area by the applicant.
Thank you. I'll go to you, Will, in a second, but we'll take some clarifying testimony, but we should refrain from hearing any enforcement-related issues under this section. If we think we need to have an enforcement on this property outside of the notice of intent, we can talk about that later. But Will, go ahead.
Just chime in real quick. I did make a site visit with Morgan Nelson last Monday. And from what I was able to see, I wasn't able to tell if the path had been existing and it's been maintained and possibly widened. But again, I'm not trying to make any claims because I don't have the historical data or photographs on the property, but it may be something that we want to make a commission site visit to. I was out directly after Monday, so after my site visit to this property for the NOI. But while there, I do also have some pictures and stuff, but my plan was to submit them next time if we're going to make a site visit based on this meeting today.
Okay, so we'll go to that. Commissioners, do you feel like there's a site visit warranted for this property?
I think so.
No? Mike?
I'm fine if Will's if Will's already been there.
Tim? John?
I'm okay.
Okay. Mr. Madden, I'll go back to you in a second, but Mr. Madden, do you have any context on this area of the salt marsh? Is that an existing cut? And if it is existing, we would need documentation of that existing. So feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, Seth. So yeah, that path is shown on the site plans. Based on our review of aerial imagery, it had been in existence at the time that the current owners acquired the parcel in 2021. And my understanding is that they have been maintaining it as such. So it is a ongoing maintenance situation. And I don't know exactly the photographs that were shared, but I've certainly been out to the path and I have photographs I can pull up if you'd like me to. But it basically terminates at the salt marsh as it kind of meanders down the coastal bank. There's a dock on the adjacent property to the west with some snow fencing that has been installed along that property line. But the path doesn't go anywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Madden, and the path is on the plan of record. So do you have anything else you'd like to?
I'd like to speak to the path and the access to the dock.
Go ahead.
There is my client purchased the property to the west. It's the main house, and then there's this parcel that goes down to the dock. At the time of the purchase from the Moran family, who also owned the Three Pops Lane, who sold it to the current owner in 2021. At the time of the purchase, the Moran family, Mary J. McLean and Ann Jennings, obtained from us, we granted them a dock access easement. There was no reason for them to be altering and cutting a path through the coastal bank. They were using, during the term of their ownership of the property until they sold it to the current owner applicant, they were using the dock access over lot 16 on Land Court Plan 14672G. So whether there may have been some pre-existing cut, I'd certainly welcome from Brian receiving what he's referring to, but it certainly wasn't being used as a coastal bank access down to Hither Creek, which apparently it is now. There's dinghies in the photo that I showed to this board. There was a dinghy yesterday when I was out observing this location as well. So I guess I'd represent to the board that whether it was some small path that subsequently was altered and enlarged and increased in width by the current owner, but the fact of the matter is this coastal bank area, which if altered would affect the immediate abutters. This coastal bank area was altered without permit and accessed by the current owner.
Thank you. Whether it was altered without permit or not remains to be seen because there's evidence that it may have been pre-existing. What we need to determine is if it, first of all, was it pre-existing? And if it was pre-existing, did it undergo use and normal maintenance? So alteration, enlargement, widening don't fall within use and normal maintenance. Use and normal maintenance is maintaining it as it existed. If there's some evidence that it was altered or widened that you have for the commission, please submit that. But in absence of that, we can't make a finding on
Mr.
on
Chairman,
that.
if I could respond to
Yep,
what you
go ahead.
just said with respect to whether it was permitted or not. This is land courted property. It would require a statement of conditions from this board and a certificate of compliance from this board that would be registered and recorded at the registry. It is not on the certificate of title nor on a prior certificate of title. So whatever alteration was done to this location was done without a permit, at least a permit of record.
So you're right in essence, it was done without a permit. However, a permit may not be required if the alteration predated the existence of the Wetlands Protection Act. So it's very possible that this path goes back to that time and then a permit is not required. That's what we need to figure out here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are technically correct, though. There's no recorded or registered permit.
Thank you.
Mr. Madden, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll add a little bit of color, but I think we're kind of getting in a field of the actual application. Based on our review of aerial imagery, it was in existence in 2019. That it clearly shows a connection down to that adjacent dock on the abutters property. Again, that predates the current ownership. The docks or the dinghies that are down in the salt marsh are evident in the 2021 aerial imagery. Again, I can pull that up if needed. Just some recent history to the site. There was an order of conditions that was issued in 2020 for some vegetation management and expansion of a deck on the property, where a COC was issued in fall of 2021, which immediately predated the current ownership and the transfer of that. But I feel this question is kind of separate from the actual proposal in front of you. So I would like to kind of get back on topic if possible, and I think these can be dealt with on separate tracks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Madden. As to the other comments referenced about the new construction happening within the 100-foot buffer zone, that is true. Our performance standards allow new structures within the 100-foot buffer zone. They do not permit new structures within the 50-foot buffer zone. So although it is within the buffer zone area, it does meet the performance standards there. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Yes, John, go ahead.
So Brian, the flood zone elevation is 8 there, am I seeing that right?
Correct, yeah.
And the top of the foundation is 17.5?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Joe?
Based on
Use the mic. No, the middle button. There you go.
Based on Brian's comments, can I change my vote?
Vote on what? We haven't voted yet. We haven't voted yet.
What did we just vote on prior to this?
That was a different application.
2 L Street.
Any other members of the public wishing to weigh in? Seeing none. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
We do, and I'm also just looking at the aerial, and it's there to in some form back to 2003 and maybe 1998, but we don't have anything before that, obviously, but just for context.
Thank you, Will. It seems like commissioners do not feel like a site visit is necessary, so Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Commissioner Williams is recused, but of those sitting, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. And now we have Dream North LLC, 28 Shimma Pond Road, SE 48 3829, represented by David Haynes.
Good evening. You guys have got a long night. This is a notice of intent to construct a retaining lawn and sport court behind it on this property at 28 Shimmo Pond Road. We did a determination of applicability, nailing down the delineation of, there is a down offsite along Shimmo Pond. Shimmo Pond is offsite, and there's a BVW offsite. The delineation was confirmed, but the closest resource area is a coastal bank by policy at elevation 7, which is the flood zone, and that barely comes on the property. The proposed work involves work within the buffer zone to both the BVW and land subject and the coastal bank, but all structures will remain outside of 50 from the bank, which is the uplandmost resource area, and a 25-foot vegetative buffer will be maintained to the coastal bank, and greater than 50% of the area will be between 25 and 50 of BVW will be retained. If you could bring up the plan, that would be great, so you can see it. The retaining wall is being constructed to limit grading. It's a very steep slope down the hill. There is a line on the plan that shows where the brush cutting of the lower area would go, and any disturbed soils would be seeded with a conservation seed mix. Some regrading will occur down below the coastal bank to limit the height of the coastal bank or the retaining wall. And a shrub hedge will be planted below the retaining wall to screen it. And it would be all native species. I believe it was inkberry, bayberry, and a couple others, but they're all acceptable plants. And so with that, it basically no structures within 50, no work within 25, and the 25 to 50, but to the coastal, the bordering vegetated wetland will remain in its natural state.
Thank you, David. Yes, Will, go ahead.
If you just give me 1 second to pull up the plan in a different way for legal purposes, Adobe crashed on me 800 times during good sir, Mr. Haynes's presentation.
We will do that. In the meantime, do commissioners have any questions or comments? Yes, RJ, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Haynes, is there any sort of drainage proposed for the sports court specifically? Thank you.
Mr. Haynes?
I don't know of it. I would recommend that we could incorporate some dry wells to pick up that drainage. It's a good point. I missed that. As I know, I don't know of any. If you could write it into the order to be approved by the staff, that would be great.
Thank you, RJ, and thank you, David. We can certainly have a condition requiring the runoff from the sports court to be infiltrated on site. There's the plan. In the meantime, any other commissioners' questions or comments? Questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do, good sir.
David, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion to close?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries unanimously. Thank you, David. We'll now be moving on to 33 Cliff Road LLC at 33 Cliff Road, SE 48 3832, represented by Art Gasparo with Linda Williams recused. Art, go up.
Thank
You're
you,
ahead. You're going up again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another residential redevelopment project up on Cliff Road within the buffer zone to the vegetated coastal bank. And we're proposing to remove the existing structure and really all of the existing structures, including those outside of the jurisdiction of the commission, and then construct a new single-family dwelling with a swimming pool, associated landscaping and appurtenances. We did request a waiver. I'm not sure that it was required, but I think there's been some difference of opinion in the past. The waiver, it was for actually the removal of structural elements within the 50-foot buffer zone. There will be no proposed structural elements within the 50-foot buffer zone. I believe the project meets all relevant performance standards, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Affirmative.
Art, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Archie, for the second. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? Commissioner Williams is recused, but otherwise, among those sitting, that carries unanimously. That will move us on to 123 Cliff Road Nominee Trust at 123 Cliff Road, SE 48 3831, also represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a residential project within the buffer zone to.
Oh, sorry, just before,
Yes.
Commissioner Turcott is recused from this one, but, yep, go ahead.
Within the buffer zone to a border and vegetated wetland, which is located on the opposite side of a dirt traveled way, Gosnold Road, from where the work is proposed. We're proposing a residential structure and driveway with a small garage studio structure, all within the 100-foot buffer zone, but outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. There's a fair amount of the property that is outside of the jurisdiction of the commission. So we have asked for a waiver for, while we met the 50-foot buffer zone for the separation to groundwater, but we're able to provide dewatering area outside of the buffer zone. And we don't believe that the footings within that zone would impact the groundwater negatively. And again, any pumped water would be essentially put outside of the buffer zone, allowed to infiltrate back in and recharge the groundwater in the area. Any plantings would be native species from the list, planting with Nantucket native species in mind. Any other questions, we'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, commissioners. Yes, John, go ahead.
Yeah, why do they want to move it back? Just to get it off the road more?
This is a proposed structure.
Oh, but there's
So there's an
one
existing
there.
structure that is,
That's going to stay?
yeah, they're gonna reconfigure, they hope to reconfigure the properties, but ultimately, we showed the work that is associated with the, within the buffer zone.
Okay.
Yes, Will, go ahead.
Just to clarify, through you, Chair Engelberg, Art, was I had it in the narrative because I wasn't sure from the plan that the existing dwelling is going to be removed from the site, but it's outside of our jurisdiction.
Right, I'm not sure exactly what's gonna happen
So,
there. It's at a
yeah,
pla-
it's not really within our, sorry.
Yeah, it's outside the jurisdiction. The only conditions that we could apply to it are constraining any activities related to that structure that would happen within the buffer zone. So like ensuring that machinery isn't stored in the buffer zone or whatever have you, but anything related to the existing structure itself is not in our jurisdiction. My one comment is that I think we should apply the waiver that's being requested for and the other waiver under section B, which talks about when portions of the resource area or buffer zone are within areas not under the applicant's control, such as a road. And this, the 50-foot buffer extends onto the site, but most of all the wetland and most of the 25-foot buffer is in the road, so we should probably apply both the waivers. Members of the public, yes, introduce yourself and say your piece.
Hello, Will Arsenal for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I'm just concerned about the amount of information that was provided in this packet. I'm not seeing any detailed information on the depth of the proposed foundation or which structures exactly are requesting the waiver, and what the depth of groundwater is at those locations.
Thank you, Willa. Art, do you have a response to that?
I did an auger hole and the groundwater was about 5 feet down, so they are proposing a full foundation, so it would be within the groundwater.
All structures would be within?
Well, there's only, excuse me, the main structure, the larger structure. The other structure would not have a full foundation. So just the one structure in the magenta color that's within the buffer zone would have a full foundation, and it would be waterproofed, and any dewatering would go outside of the buffer zone to an infiltration facility, essentially to recharge the groundwater.
But not the small.
That's correct.
Okay, in the driveway layout. So given that we do need an alternatives analysis submitted to us related to the groundwater, especially because there are alternatives to full basements that could be used. So we do need that submitted in the written record.
Sure, we could agree to a continuance and provide that information, and then if there's any other information or questions, we
Yep.
have to get that too.
Will, is there anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public? So Art, yes, if you have schematic drawings of the proposed basement and alternatives to full basements, we would request those be submitted to the commission.
Will do.
Okay, commissioners, anything else? Okay, with that being said, Art, would you like to continue until
The 5th, please.
5th?
Yes.
This will continue till December 5th. And that brings us on in the hearing to amended orders of condition. Amended orders of conditions. We'll start with Waterfront Pocomo LLC at 17 Loretta Lane, SC 483542, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This hearing had been continued from the last meeting. This was the so-called chaotic plan. And we filed a revised plan, two plans, one which maintained the magenta, and which was essentially the previously approved conditions, and then another cleaned up version, if you will, which had the proposed conditions shown in red. We also, I provided a letter, we made a change to the proposal where on the main house, you could see on the south side, there's sort of an indent in the house, and we had what we called an infill addition going across that area. It was entirely within the 50-foot buffer zone, and we heard some concerns from the commission. So we've removed that from the application, and then we enlarged slightly the addition coming off the south side that you can see there. That had already been proposed, but we made it a little bit longer, but it stops from going into the 50-foot buffer zone to the south. There is a small corner triangle of that addition, which is proposed within the 50-foot buffer zone. It's about 9 square feet. It's a big hydrangea bush right now, existing condition. Again, the opposite side of the resource area. And then the only other aspect of the project that is proposed within the 50-foot buffer zone is on the east side of the smaller cottage structure, an HVAC unit on a bracket, again, next to an existing outdoor shower within an existing lawn area. And so the rest of the project, as previously described, we've reduced the scope, and there's some driveway expansion. The other structural elements, everything's outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. It represents a significant decrease from the scope of overall building area within the overall buffer zone that had been approved under the original order of conditions. It also greatly, I think, reduces the level of activity by not removing those existing structures, which is what had been approved. So I think when you look at all of this in aggregate, that is actually an improvement, and we hope you would agree and try to address any questions should you have them.
Thank you. A site visit had also been requested. Morgan, myself, and Tim met Art and his field assistant on site for the site visit. I know that Mike also attended. Other commissioners, did you have a chance to see the site, or do you feel satisfied with the information you have?
I know the site separately.
Okay,
I was able to go on Tuesday.
great. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Members of the public, any questions or comments? Seeing none. Will, do we have all the required information?
I'll give it an indubitably.
You stop with that word.
You gotta start wearing a top hat if you're gonna say that. Art, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to
So moved.
close the hearing and issue the amended order of
So moved,
conditions?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Second.
Linda, and thank you, Mike, for the second. All those in favor by voice vote, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And we'll move on to Golden Pond LLC, 64 and 66 Baxter Road, represented by David Haynes.
Good evening. This project is requesting an amended order of conditions from one that was issued 2 years ago. The reason for an amended is because some of the work is closer to the wetland boundary than was originally approved. The structures have been changed slightly. Some are small, they're smaller, no closer, still within the same building envelope that was originally approved. So the structure is not the issue, the landscaping is. The previous plan showed the most of the work staying completely outside of 50 feet from the wetland. This has got some landscaping within 50 feet, including some within 25 that we're asking for a waiver for. And that the work that we're asking for a waiver for includes removal of a privet hedge and replanting of native species. And that will be within 25. Some reconfiguration of the limit of work to go down, do some additional clearing beyond the edge of what is existing lawn and reestablishing it as lawn. Still greater than 50% of the 25 to 50 from the BVW will be maintained. That all meets the performance standards. The only waiver request is the removal, the work within 25 for the removal of the privet hedge and replanting. Basically, that is it. No major grade changes or anything like that are occurring. That clearing they'll reestablish a lawn in those areas. No fertilizer or irrigation is proposed. Basically, that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions or comments from commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yep.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
David, would you like to close? Okay, is there a motion to close the amended order of conditions
So moved.
and issue? Thank you. Linda, is there a second? Thank you, Joe. By voice vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That carries unanimously. Thank you, David.
Thank you, and all have a happy Thanksgiving.
You as well. We're now moving on to our public meeting. We'll be starting in request for determination of applicability. We have Lamp at 15 Aurora Way. Lampy, sorry. 15 Aurora Way, represented by Don Bracken.
Represented by Will.
Represented by
Yeah, he's stuck over at the Board of
Will
Health.
Dellerba.
Let me just
Go
grab
ahead,
the
Will.
plan for y'all. This is as I'm bringing it up, this is a post facto shed installation. I'll show you here. I believe the shed is 54 square feet, if my memory works right now. 56? I was so close.
You're so close.
So I did go out to see this site. I believe it was Monday, one of the days that happened. And the small shed it was actually kind of hard to find, which is funny, but it's tucked in behind the house on the opposite side of the resource area. And you can see this house was it's skinny to be in this constraints of the lot. So they added this little shed at some point. And I'm assuming when Dean went to get his COC, he found the shed. But I was recommending
Yep, there.
So I was recommending a determination of a -3 that the work is indeed in the buffer zone, but I cannot see a additional negative impact from what's existing on the other side of the house.
Okay. I mean, the work already happened, but
yes,
don't we technically need a positive motion as well to allow the work to proceed without a notice of intent?
You may be right, and I can
We
give
need
you
a
that code
-3 and a
momentarily.
+2
It's a +2, -3, yep.
'Cause
So +2, and for the record, even though you just said it, +2 is that we're allowing the work to proceed even though there's no notice of intent filed, and the -3 is that the work is in the buffer zone, but no additional adverse impacts to the resource area expected.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That will carry unanimously. We have no minor modifications tonight. We have one certificate of compliance, 5 QPR LLC of 5 Quays Pastures Road, SC 483593, represented by Mark Ritz, with Commissioner Mizzarelli recused. Mark, good evening.
Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 5 Quays Pasture. We're before you for a cert of compliance. We feel that the work has been completed substantially in compliance with the order of conditions. We've provided an as-built site plan, and hopefully somebody's been out to review it and thinks everything is okay. So
Thank you. Will, have you been out to the site and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, sir. Through you, Chair Engelberg. Don't worry, Mark Ritz. I always go out there. And the site was in compliance. I was recommending issuing the cert. There's one continuing condition.
20.
My goodness. So we only had one pool condition on this one. It's condition 20 that we would be continuing. The pool or pool equipment shall not be discharged to an area within the commission's jurisdiction.
Thank you. Questions or comments from commissioners? Is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance with ongoing condition 20?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Among those sitting, that carries unanimously with Commissioner Mizzarelli recused.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. So, orders of conditions. Were these sent out?
They were not sent out. I will put them up on the screen, though, as we go. Apologies on that.
Okay. All right. So we'll be starting with Nantucket Islands Land Bank, SC 483819, the Gardner Farm project.
Yes. I know I didn't sound sure, but the answer is actually yes. Just close this. All right, so this order was the proposed forest management at Gardner Farm, which is where Rusty and I walk every day, so this is going to be cool to see. The order permits the proposed forest management at Gardner Farm to improve resilience to southern pine beetle, reduce wildfire risk, and improve forest health within bordering vegetated wetland in their respective buffer zones. A waiver is required for the project as proposed. The area falls outside mapped NHESP habitat and does not require NHESP review, which is funny because I see tons of osprey there. In addition to the general conditions, we've got 18 and 19. I added condition 20 instead of 8 million conditions because there were very substantial conditions. What is this? Included in the NOI. So the best management practices listed on page 6 of the applicant's notice of intent shall be considered additional conditions to this order, and the project narrative will be included as an addendum to this order, which it always is, but we're making it clear. 21, all reports outlined in the narrative due by anniversary of this order's issuance, and I'm going to put an R in there. And the waiver request here, net benefit to the resource area was what the waiver is granted under. Any questions or additional conditions?
This was presented as an Ecological Restoration Limited project. Did we call that out or we don't worry about that?
I don't believe we necessarily have to. We can in an additional finding, but as that's all like a part of their application process. I mean,
Alright. That's fine. Additions, questions, comments? Okay, is there a motion to issue as drafted?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you, Linda and Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously. We'll move on to 44 Matticat Road Realty Trust.
That's the one that was already closed.
Yep, but we didn't issue the order. It's SE 483817. We did close it at last hearing, but we didn't issue the order, so we're gonna have to issue the order tonight.
All right, this one is for 44 Matticat Road. This order permits the construction of a porch, driveway, and patio reconfigurations, that should say. Wow. and associated grading, landscaping, and utilities installation within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Waiver is not required for this project as proposed.
You're missing an I, Bill.
Oh, I know. That's why I can't talk right now. I got a wire crossed. We're all good. We had conditions 18 and 19, and then 20 through 24. 20, the applicant shall present a yearly report including photographs demonstrating the condition and survivorship of the replanted area and the existing vegetated areas. Should the commission determine that additional plantings are necessary, they will be authorized based on this discussion. 21, all restoration plantings and seedings are to be native species with no cultivars. 22, should the project area show less than 50% regrowth of native species within the first 2 years and 6 months of the permit, the applicant shall file a new notice or amendment for supplementing the area with native plantings and/or seedings. 23, all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with Chapter 102 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket. 24,
You don't have to
reports
read
are
the
due
whole thing.
annually.
You just summarize it.
Oh, I don't?
I can read it.
You can just
Come on, I've been
summarize it.
reading them all for like 3 years.
You don't have to.
So a waiver is required for this project because the applicant is proposing metal driveway edging that would be considered a structural component.
That always gets me, that.
They decided to remove the retaining wall, but add that edging, so we do need to issue a waiver.
Okay.
Mr. Madden, do you have something to add that is to help us with the record, or no?
Yeah, thank you. A waiver is also requested for restoration revegetation of the 25-foot buffer zone as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions or comments?
Is everybody okay with me applying that waiver after the meeting, as it is standard language, but it's gonna hold us up?
The waiver is required for those two performance standards. We should probably just call it what those performance standards are, even if you don't want to write the whole thing right now, especially if we issued this last time and we don't run afoul of the timing, so, yeah.
Going fast as possible.
It's okay.
So we have for the driveway edging was within the 25 of a BVW, was that? Just to.
Yeah, that's performance standard 1 under vegetated wetlands. And the restoration also falls under performance standard 1 under vegetated wetlands. They're both activities taking place in the 25-foot buffer or the 50-foot buffer in case of the driveway edging. And we should probably apply the waiver for no reasonable alternatives, no adverse impacts.
I just want to give the numbers right. Sorry. It initially brought up the chapter 136, which I know we all love. So we would be granting a waiver related to the driveway edging. Where did you go? So it's 390 F3A, not adversely impact the resource area. That's for the driveway edging. And then we had, for restoration activities, were you looking for the specific invasive and that waiver, or are you looking for?
No, we're looking for the long-term net benefit, I think, there.
All right, and the long-term net benefit is 390 F3 C. I wish I had these memorized at this point.
Seth has them memorized. You have them memorized.
Not all the numbers, but most of the words. And the performance, you have the performance standards that they're waiving.
Yeah.
All right. Are we good with that?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries unanimously. And we will move on to Capri's Island Holdings LLC, SC 48 3823. Linda's recused from this.
All right, 47 Crooked. Order permits proposed reconstruction of an existing structure, construction of a secondary dwelling, pool, patio, cabana, and shed. The area falls within mapped NHESP habitat, 1819. And 20 through 24 are our pool conditions. Can I say that?
Yep.
You comfortable with
It's
that?
not showing up on the Zoom, but
Oh, my bad. And then 25, we have our lighting condition as well. Bless you.
yeah, you can just say pool and lighting condition and it's fine.
Yep, so we've got our pool and lighting conditions. There we go. Finally showed up.
Okay. Commissioners, comments, questions, additions? Is there a motion to issue?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That is carried with Commissioner Williams recused. And we'll move on to Hall, 19 Medallion Creek Road, SC 48 3820. With RJ recused.
All right, 19 Medallion Creek. We have the proposed relocation of an existing driveway and construction of a second dwelling.
Doesn't have to read it.
The area falls within mapped NHESP habitat, but does not require additional NHESP review beyond the issued no-take letter dated 7/25/24. There's an interesting one for everybody. And we had our conditions 18 and 19, and then this was also called out in the NOI, but we've added condition 20 that no ag chemicals or fertilizer shall be used within our jurisdiction. And there was no waiver.
Thanks. I mean, I personally think we should put that on every permit, but any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
Motion to issue?
Issue.
Is there a second?
Second.
By voice vote, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries with Commissioner Turcott recused. And we'll go on to the Land Bank Lily Pond Park projects. We're gonna have the SE 48 3826 and 3827 together.
They have to be separate documents or can? are
They
the
have to be
documents
separate
combined? That's what I
documents,
thought.
but we can look at them together and
Okay.
issue them both together.
I'll share the screen with Bull.
Don't get cute here. It's gonna
Or
take
we
you
can
all
just,
day.
we can look at
It's
them.
not gonna work. All right,
Yeah,
we'll do
don't
one.
We'll just
Don't
look at
do
them
it.
one by one.
Don't
but-
do it.
All right, so we'll start, 27 first.
27's first on the agenda.
Perfect.
This is for the park improvements. The other one's for the wetland restoration.
All right, this is 3827, so.
You gotta share on Zoom.
Ooh, I am, I'm sure, it's, it might take a second, but I should be sharing this screen.
Slow.
But let me know if it doesn't show up, because I'll change that. Hold on.
I don't think, it's not
Just
showing.
look at them and I-
Love it. Oh, because I'm sharing the wrong screen.
Yeah, we can look at it in the packet, but the
Just look
public,
at-
the
Yeah.
public needs to see it.
We'll do this. Do one at a time.
All right, there you go.
I wanted
That's
to
good.
do both. All right. So this order permits, this is 30.
Don't read it.
Permits park improvements, stormwater infrastructure, installation of trails. No NHESP, 1819. All reports are required by anniversary of this order's date of issuance until a COC is issued. We have some monitoring and stuff in the NOI, so I threw 20 in there. And then we have our waiver under 39018B1. All projects must maintain a 25-foot natural undisturbed area. We have no additional adverse effects to the resource area under the park improvements. So we're granting a waiver under 393F3A.
Put an apostrophe in orders,
Questions or comments?
anniversary, orders, apostrophe somewhere.
And you got Spruce.
Come up with a standard.
This is
language
not a
for that.
public hearing,
we
so
can't.
we will not be recognizing Mr. Balkind.
So I'll make a motion.
Not yet. Let's go to the next one and let's
Oh, yeah.
do them both together.
Yeah.
So now is the 3826 for the wetland restoration.
Gotta be a hockey.
Being challenged.
There's gotta be a hockey. I don't know why I haven't learned that.
Always a challenge.
Okay.
Might be challenging.
So we've got the restoration and invasive species order here with planting, grading, excavation, et cetera. No NHESP, 1819. Again, we had a very robust NOI packet here. And then 20 regarding yearly reports for planting and survivorship. 21, no native species, no cultivars. 22, 23 are related to the use of specific herbicides shown on, and using the rates shown on the label. And also reports for the quantity and specific type. Then we have 24 that for the regrowth in the project area, showing that if we have less than 50%, we need an amendment or a new notice. And then 25 that are,
Apostrophe.
I know, here we go. All reports are required by the anniversary of the order's issuance. And that is it. Oh,
Questions
also
or
waiver.
comments?
No.
We've been starting to say anniversary, yeah. We had this discussion a couple times. One time we're like, let's say everything is due by December 31st, and then Will gets a real nice Christmas present. Post-Christmas New Year's gift. He gets 75 monitoring reports to
December
review
31st.
on New Year's Day. So we decided to make it easier on staff. We're gonna spread them throughout the year, and the only way we can require them to be spread is by this anniversary.
So I'll make a motion to
We need a motion to issue
issue both of them.
both of the
Yeah,
orders.
both of the orders.
Second.
Okay, by voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The SE 48, 3827 and 3826 carried unanimously. And we'll move on to Coda LLC, 42 Shima Pond Road, SE 48, 3825. And RJ is recused from that one. So we'll go to you.
42 Shimo Pond Road, Akota LLC. Sharing real quick. So this was for the proposed relocation and renovation of the existing dwelling, additions, pool, secondary structure and garage. No NHESP, conditions 18 and 19. Our standard pool conditions, 20 through 24. Wow, this is so much better than what I normally do. And we have our waiver here under 395B5. All projects must maintain a 25-foot natural undisturbed area, and we had that the proposed project will result in net benefit to the resource area. And our waivers under 393F3C.
All right. This is the one that we need to expressly say Japanese black pine or any of its cultivars are prohibited by, or not permitted by this order.
Yeah.
Yes, John.
Shouldn't this also have light conditions? There's a pool, isn't there?
Yes.
Thank you, John. I'll throw that on real quick. I'm also gonna...
Standard light condition.
Yes.
I just went to a lighting seminar.
I'll also, just while we're thinking about that, and I'm copy and pasting, I think we've mentioned this in a meeting before, but I do have several paper copies of the guidance for the chapter 102.
Thank you. We also
At
still
the
don't have
office.
a sewage treatment facility. We have a wastewater treatment facility.
Yep.
I'll fix that. David would be upset with me.
David is probably upset with all of us at this point, after how many orders we've accidentally said that on.
Sorry, David, for the record. Right, so we have our lighting condition, and
Where'd you put the no Japanese?
I'm gonna fix
He's gonna
that.
write it.
Okay.
So far, I got Pinus Thun.
I saw that. I was
Bird's
just like,
eye.
that's it.
Gotta love the double I names.
Oh, I got Thunberg.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah, good luck finding that these days. There's no nursery stock anymore.
You're never gonna find that cultivar. You're never gonna find Durahit River Birch either,
Not to,
which,
like-
sorry.
Not to elaborate too much, but I feel like the landscape designer just had some that they wanted to
Isn't
get
there
rid
a
of.
word after this? Order?
Yeah, I got excited about plants for a
Just
second.
say
sorry.
order, a period. We can move on.
And
I
that's
think
it.
that's actually a condition, not a finding.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Correct, you are. All right.
And I think we need to say or any of its cultivars because it sounded like we were fine with the other landscape stuff.
Any,
It's possessive.
why isn't it?
It's the possessive it, not the.
It's been a long time since school. It's wow. Tired.
There you go.
Oh no, you can't. Just get that out of there. Get it out of there.
There's no, just ITS. There you go.
That's staying.
That's fine. Yeah, you spelled shower wrong, but yeah. All right. Anything else from commissioners? Okay, is there a motion to issue the order as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries with Commissioner Turcott recused. Now we'll go to 99 Washington LLC at 103 Washington Street, SE 483828 with Commissioner Williams recused. You guys are making it hard for me tonight.
Got a lot of handwritten notes over here.
So
Let me just share the screen.
share the screen.
All right, so we've got 103 Washington Street. This was for the proposed construction of additions as well as an accessible ramp to the home, I believe. Yes.
It's a business, but yeah.
Oh, the business, my bad. Is this sales seafood? Anyway, we don't have NHESP. And I had conditions 18 and 19. I'm gonna throw the lighting condition in here too. I missed it.
Yeah, but we're just working with the
Salt
flood.
marsh.
We're working with the flood zone.
It's
And the
buffer zone to salt marsh.
Okay, fine.
We also don't have to, just for the
No, I
record,
put it.
guys.
It's fine.
Nope.
I mean, yeah.
Don't do that. We're just putting that on every condition now, or on every order now.
Commissioners, anything else?
No. Sorry, the whole formatting changed, and I don't want that. All right, all set.
Is there a motion to issue the order as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries with Commissioner Williams recused. And now Syracuse, 2 L Street, SC 48, 3821. And this one has everybody.
Syracuse to L Street. We have the proposed removal of the existing structure and construction of a house and shed, associated landscaping, no NHESP.
There wasn't a lot happening here.
And we just have conditions 18 and 19. We're just in LSCSF here.
Questions or comments? Is there a motion to issue as drafted?
Motion issues drafted.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? That carries unanimously. Then we got the Pops Lane Holdings Trust, 3 Pops Lane, SC 48, 3830, with Commissioner Williams recused.
Three Pops Lane, proposed demolition or removal of an existing structure, construction of new dwelling, basement, decking, porch, outdoor shower, all sorts of stuff. Outside NHESP, we have conditions 18 and 19. And we have, since the pool is actually outside of our jurisdiction, we have condition 20, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into our jurisdiction, and our lighting condition.
Okay, Commissioners, questions or comments? Is there a motion to issue as drafted? Thank you, RJ. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries unanimously with Commissioner Williams recused. And now, Dream North LLC, 28 Shimma Pond Road, SC 48, 3829.
I do have one on this. It was an infiltrator on site because of the.
Yes, yep. RJ, you beat RJ to it.
Yes, I did. I wrote it down.
We're all having fun here. All right. Proposed demolition or removal of an existing structure, construction of a sport court, lawn area, and landscaping at 28 Shimmo Pond Road, buffer zone to coastal bank and BVW. We are outside NHESP, conditions 18 and 19. Condition 20, that the pool can't be drained into our jurisdiction. Our lighting condition 21 and 22 added in during the meeting. Stormwater related to the proposed sport court shall be infiltrated into a subsurface infiltration system. I'm gonna say shall be directed into a subsurface infiltration system.
Yeah. And the plan for said system should be submitted to the Conservation Commission staff.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it.
Is there a motion to issue the order as amended?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Let's do a voice vote. If you're in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed or abstains, nope, carries unanimously. And we'll go on to 33 Cliff Road LLC, 33 Cliff Road, SC 48, 38, 32, with Commissioner Williams recused.
It's a weird night.
So back and forth. And Will, see you again.
All right. You pull your desk chair in, you put your desk chair out. All right, this is 33 Cliff Road. Everybody. Proposed removal of an existing structure, construction of a new dwelling and pool at 33 Cliff Road. Buffer zone of BVW, waiver required, outside NHESP. We had conditions 18 and 19 are pool conditions, 20 through 24. And
Oh, we gotta share on
change
Zoom.
wastewater. Oh, my bad. Also gonna change sewage to wastewater. Again, I apologize, David Gray. I even used to work for a water and sewer department for like a whole year and should really be getting that word right.
Questions or comments or additions from commissioners? Is there a motion to issue the order as amended? Thank you, RJ. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Commissioner Williams is recused, but otherwise that carries unanimously among those sitting. And
123 was continued.
that's it, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we didn't issue that.
That is it. So we'll be moving on. We have no extensions of orders tonight. We'll be moving on to other business. The first is approval of minutes for April 11th, 2024, April 25th, 2024, May 23rd, 2024, June 6th, 2024, and June 20th, 2024.
You've been busy.
Let me jump in super quick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan Nelson and Lisa Graves. This has been
Torture.
rough.
Yeah.
And
Thank you all at the Natural Resources Department staff for doing that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Before you get there, we got a couple things.
No, you don't.
First of all, 6:20, the minutes never made into the packet, so we should hold off on that for now. The second thing is that there are two commissioners who weren't on the commission when these meetings happened. You're allowed to approve them or you're allowed to abstain. It's a personal choice.
Abstain.
Abstain.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it when we vote.
It's you too, and John as well.
Okay, so I request that we hold off 6:20 until the next meeting.
Okay.
On the approval of minutes for the 4:11, 4:25, 5:23, and 6:06, is there a motion to approve those?
So moved as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, by roll call vote, Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Abstain.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski. If you have comments, you should tell us now.
Errors and omissions have to come up now.
or if they're not a big deal, don't worry about them.
Yeah, if it's just syntax or something.
We can do that.
Yeah, that would work.
There's misspellings is all.
Misspellings, yeah, if it's a,
Yeah.
if it's a
But
substantive error.
spell his name correctly.
Okay.
What the other one is, there were several in here.
We either need them now or
Chip nylon.
do you want to approve or abstain?
I will
Or
approve,
oppose.
and I'll get the information to Will so that they at least look good.
Okay. Tim Brain,
Yes, approve.
John Schaefer,
Abstain.
Seth Engelborg votes aye.
Okay.
Yes, Will.
I just want to legit say thank you to Morgan and Lisa again because they also have very real full-time jobs. So
Yeah.
I'm not
Yes.
judging for any errors for the record, but we'll fix everything certainly. And we can hold anything.
Okay.
Okay, monitoring reports tonight, we have none. Enforcement actions or potential enforcement actions, we have 63 Baxter Road. Will, do you want to give an update or do you want me to?
I would love for you to, but I can also give an update.
I'll do it. So you may remember that this enforcement came as a result of unpermitted sandbags being placed on the beach. We requested at last meeting for the property owner to submit a memo that indicated some, I guess, justification for what happens and why. That
And where it
memo
came, and where the sand came
and where the
from.
sand came from. That memo was submitted. Commissioners, did you have a chance to review it?
It was very well written,
Yeah, I knew a lot of it.
I read it.
anyway.
Okay.
and she's not guilty.
So do we feel like it's become clear that the sand was purchased and filled offsite?
Yes.
Yes. The one thing that I realized came up in the order though is the caretaker of the site, Jim Murray from Unique Homes, in addition to the discussion of the placement of the sand, has indicated that he built a viewing platform for real estate purposes on the lot.
Yes,
There is no details on where that viewing platform is, but if that viewing platform is in the buffer zone to the coastal bank, especially if it's in the 50-foot buffer zone of the coastal bank, that's an unpermitted structure in the area. So we
Have you
need to.
seen it yet?
I have not seen it. So we need to continue this enforcement order, to continue the cease and desist on the enforcement order. We need to amend the enforcement order to include Unique Homes, Jim Murray. And we need to do a site visit to measure where that is and or request information to be given to us from the property owner to have a survey done indicating where that is.
It's just an endless procession of.
It is, yeah. Will, anything to add?
No, but I'd be happy we'll make a site visit. I might have something to add by then.
So before we do that, so we need a motion to amend the order to include Unique Homes, Jim Murray, to continue the cease and desist until this has been resolved, and to indicate that there has come to light that a unpermitted structure may potentially be within an area subject to our jurisdiction.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries unanimously. Will, please amend that order and do the site visit when you have a chance.
And go up in it, so it's a nice view.
Okay.
I have one more that's not on the
Yep,
agenda. It'll be 30 seconds.
Are there other potential enforcement actions? Go ahead.
So
My pet peeve.
just for one that's already open, which we're not going to go into discussion. It's in Will's hands right now. But 62 Winoma, the deer fencing, we issued an enforcement order. I've been tracking it. It originally was not delivered, but then it was delivered, and they have had it for almost 2 weeks now. So I'll be starting to issue daily tickets tomorrow or Monday, probably tomorrow. we just have to get the procedural, it's been a long time since we've done that, so we're gonna have to get everything figured out, but it should be tomorrow, if
Yeah.
not Monday.
It's unusual not to have a response,
It's,
especially when he knew it was coming.
it's unusual, but it's happened before. Our standard procedure in these cases are we issue the daily tickets every day until a response is received or it reaches the threshold for a summons by the police or the sheriff's department. So that's what we're gonna do. They're gonna get a ticket every day until one of those things happens.
And he knew
Mike,
this was
Go
happening.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the daily ticket? Is it a fine that goes along with it, or is it
It's a
just a ticket?
$50 fine and it's a citation every single day.
We need to look into that because the HCC is like 300, the building department is 4 times, the HCC is 10 times the
Yeah.
fee.
We looked into it and we don't have any ability to change it unless we do a amendment to our bylaw.
Is that a home rule petition? Or is that
It
town
would
meeting?
Go through town meeting, but,
Well,
all
I think we need to have a conversation about that.
right, Will, go ahead.
Just to be clear, in my opinion, I believe it's only 2 weeks. Don't quote me, I guess, but I believe it's only 2 weeks of these $50 tickets, and I think that the sheriff serve is plenty of motivation. Thank you. I was not going to use a
And when
good
we-
term.
Yeah, but 50 bucks, you're just going to
Hold
do
on,
it.
Please has to be recognized. But when we came upon this the last time, the maximum ticket allowed under non-criminal disposition in Massachusetts is $300 per day.
That's what the HCC does.
So we could at some point go to decide to make that change. I understand $300 is more than 50, but is $300 enough of a deterrent? I'm not sure. So for
But
now.
every day?
Yeah, for now, we're doing what we can and we can talk about it. I mean, we literally have an item on the agenda about that. We can talk about it, but I would prefer that we just maybe talk about that at a different time.
I'm fine with that, but we just need to do it.
We need to
Something.
do it, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I am with you on that.
yeah.
so I've directed Will to issue those tickets daily until we receive a response or a summons is issued.
Okay.
Anything else, Will?
That should be it for now.
Okay, we'll move on to.
What about that thing with the path? Then we're all satisfied that was existing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, am I allowed to comment on the enforcement actions?
No, you're not, unfortunately. This is a public meeting, not a public hearing. Yes, Will, go ahead.
Feel free to shoot me an email, Spruce, though.
Okay, I had a really quick point, but I won't,
If it's a clarifying procedural comment, you're allowed to say. If it's anything substantive, the answer is no.
well, in the letter from the packet, I had one thing that I just wanted to bring up. It's a one sentence.
We're not gonna recognize it.
Okay,
but
okay, then
send it.
I'll send an email to Will. Thank
Send
you.
the email. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to Conservation Commission procedure update. So we had a special meeting last week. Most of us were able to attend. I think we made excellent progress at that meeting. We have a update to our procedures that is in the packet. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to read through it. It will hopefully cut down on a lot of time at hearings. The staff has requested that we, if we have any additional discussion about this, we can do that at this meeting, but they requested we hold off on the vote of adoption until December 5th, just because they want to look at some procedural things related to basically the order of items on the agenda.
You can
so
say
does-
it's Will, it's okay.
So is there any discussion? Are people happy with this?
It's fine.
All right, Mike?
No substantive discussion, but it's, are we planning for January 1, or we would roll in right after December 5?
We're planning to have this go into effect on January 1st, 2025, in line with the regulatory.
Yeah, the new
changes.
regs go into effect too.
Great, thank you.
Okay, So beyond that, we'll move on to discussion and potential adoption of the 2025 Conservation Commission meeting schedule. This was provided at the special meeting. Will, do you have that schedule in front of you?
Good question. If I don't, I should be able to get it. But
The staff made sure that we avoided any major holidays, school breaks, etc. So unless there's any extreme circumstances, we're going to take a motion to approve the 2025 meeting schedule. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, let's get that posted up on the website as soon as possible. And now we're going to move on to the wetlands bylaw update for town meeting. So, because of the regulatory update that we already approved, that will go into place in January 1st, we have to make two very minor changes to our bylaw. That update is in the packet with the red lines. It's to basically add one interest. That interest is resiliency, and to add one resource area, which is the 200-foot buffer zone, to the Great Pond. Oh, and there's one third change is to require that everything is presented at the time of filing rather than the time of opening of the public hearing. So those three very minor changes. We will have to make a vote to approve this, and we will have to bring this to town meeting for approval, but.
Now, why do we have to go to town meeting for this and we didn't for the rest of the update?
So the bylaw is the actual Town of Nantucket code.
Legislation, yeah.
That was what was originally adopted at town meeting.
Okay.
The bylaw gives us authority to promulgate regulations to make those bylaws more meaningful, but the actual bylaw needs to be heard at town meeting. It's three extremely minor changes. I don't think anyone's gonna have an issue on it, but it does need to be heard. That being said, is there a motion? Yeah, go ahead.
Are these the three? Because I looked at the cross-outs that were made.
Do you have that in color?
No, it's not in color.
You want to put it up on the screen, Will?
Well, we have to write it for the select board, because the select board has to put it in for us.
I mean, they could either put it in, or we could put it in as a citizen.
You can't, it's done. So
Yeah.
whatever we do now has to go through the board of
Okay,
selectmen.
there again, we'll have them put it in for us.
Okay, but we need
it's
to
all in
write
my
it.
email. And I
We need to write it. just so
It's
you
been
know.
written. It's been
Okay.
written,
Yeah.
And then given to Erica.
In section 136-2 purpose, it's to add resiliency after recreation.
Okay,
In section 136-3A, it's to add or within 200 feet of a great pond after certified vernal pools. And in section 136-4A, it's to cross out those things that are crossed out and change the deadline for when things must be received to be the time of filing rather than the date of the opening of the public hearing.
okay.
That's it.
Cross-outs are in here, but the additions I didn't find.
We just
I
said
got the cross-out, it's very clear. Oh, they're in red.
Yeah, if you had the
Yeah,
color.
It's a
color
red
version.
line thing.
Yeah.
Black.
Does anyone have questions or comments? Do you want to see it on my computer?
No.
Okay.
I have a computer.
Good. Questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to put it in.
The motion would be to approve
submit
of
it.
the wetlands bylaw update to submit to town meeting.
Yeah, through the select board.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That carries unanimously, and we'll be moving on to reports. We got Craig, Tim Brain, CPC, John Schaefer.
Yeah, I believe we settled everything at the last meeting, and that's all funded now.
Okay, MPDC, Mike Mazzarelli.
There was 2 meetings, and they happened to fall in the time I was away, so unfortunately, I don't have anything to report, but I think you can probably read about it on the Current.
That's fine. And Harbor Plan, Linda Williams.
We're still waiting for the draft.
Okay. Now we'll go on to commissioners' comments.
Good meeting, Mr. Chairman, again.
Any other comments?
Yes, somebody mentioned that they're gonna be. Somebody mentioned there was going to be 50 NOIs coming up. Was that a joke?
I think he said 31.
You don't want to be here for
31.
December
He said
5th.
31.
December 5th.
Only 31. Can we start an hour earlier?
We are starting an hour earlier.
No, we didn't. We changed the meeting to, the
that's right.
SPPF meeting to a different
All
day.
right, to a different date.
Can we have it catered?
Well, you got to bring food,
that's a
a
good
sleeping bag, and a pillow.
Yeah, we don't want to run afoul of any ethical issues, but the HEC has pizza, so I mean, maybe there's a way to have pizza.
We just order, they bring it. We
Yeah.
order it and it comes.
If people just bring it,
brought.
I think that's fine.
It's going to be a long one.
The company brings it. Food's for here and there, those guys.
All right. Any other commissioners' comments?
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you, Mike. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, and thank
Yeah.
you for being very patient through this long meeting. Will, any staff reports?
I just want to say thank you for giving me one more week on the procedural update because it's been a little MIA and that's so important to me. I just want to be 1,000,000% comfortable and also thank you guys for a great meeting and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Thank
Motion to
you.
adjourn.
Thank
And we
you.
have paper signature pages.
We have the signatures
Be
ready.
careful what the two of us don't sign, though.
You're notated.
So before people leave, make sure we sign the signature pages.
Yep.
So there's a motion to adjourn made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? We are adjourned. Thank you all.